Chapter 1557. Everyone sighed in amazement when they heard what Shaoling had said. In reality, no one knew the strength of the four sovereigns back then because the cultivation realm above the Holy Emperor had yet to be announced. All those who had reached the origin realm, whether they were receival, returnance, or reciprocity, were referred to as surpassing the Holy Emperor. After all, there were only 4 such experts in the entire world. Even now, only Poseidon knew the exact strength of the 4 sovereigns. No one knew the exact strength of Mo Tianyin, Aruejin, and the winged tiger. They could only guess a little from the bits and pieces of information that Shaoling had divulged. However, this was enough to make them sigh in amazement. Everyone, although the experts from the world of forsaken saints have retreated, they can attack our Tianyuan continent at any time as long as the tunnel remains open. As a result, it's best if you don't leave this divine hall. You have to be prepared to channel your energy into the divine hall at any time. Only by unleashing the divine hall's power to its maximum can we remain here and keep the people from the world of forsaken saints at bay, Tianjian said to the people around him. Tianjian said to the people around him. He slowly glanced past the origin realm experts with a determined gaze. His heart could not help but churn. Shangguan Mu-er, Chanyang Mingyue, the winged tiger, and Taita had all been his juniors in the past. They were much weaker than him, and he had even assisted a few of them in the past, protecting them. However, when he emerged from seclusion, it was like countless years had passed in the outside world. The people who had once supported him and even received his protection had all reached the origin realm now. There was also Houston. He had been at the great perfection of the Holy Emperor in the past. They were both supreme experts who stood at the apex of the Tianyuan continent, yet now the person who was basically his age had also reached the origin realm. Tianjian sighed in amazement. Although the supreme divine hall had been placed at the entrance of the tunnel, just Tianjian and the divine hall were not enough to guard the entrance. Although it was impossible for the people from the world of forsaken saints to destroy the divine hall, they possessed enough power to push it away. As a result, the divine hall needed to be maintained by many origin realm experts and sainthood experts. Only then could the formation function and stop the experts from the world of forsaken saints. There was no need for Tianjian to explain this. Everyone understood this, so none of the origin realm experts had any objections to Tianjian's suggestion. They all agreed to stay and watch over the divine hall. There's an even more powerful Spirit King in the world of forsaken saints. The reason why the Spirit King hasn't come this time is probably because the tunnel is still unable to endure his power. Once the tunnel stabilizes, the Spirit King might enter the tunnel and attack the divine hall. The world of forsaken saints possesses origin energy, so even if the Spirit King runs out of it, he can recover in an extremely short amount of time. However, it's extremely difficult for us to recover origin energy here, so we need to conserve origin energy. At the same time, we need to use all the resources we can, including various monster cores regardless of grade, Saint Ruler skeletons, and the special crystal coins of the sea race. As long as it's something that can be extracted, we need to use it all. Only then can we last longer and slowly find a way to deal with the threat from the world of forsaken saints, Tianjian said solemnly. Houston said with a heavy voice. His face was extremely stern. Most of his wounds had been healed by the artifact space, so he had changed into a new set of robes. It's rumored that the Spirit King's strength is equivalent to godhood. We probably won't be able to fend him off even if we have several hundred years to recuperate. At the same time, if he constantly exhausts the power of our divine hall, we'll only be able to last for a few decades or even a few years, even if we gather all the power of the 4 races. How are we supposed to stop the Spirit King? In ancient times, the greatest human expert, Mo Tianyin, invaded the world of forsaken saints all by himself and committed a massacre. He killed many origin realm experts from the world of forsaken saints, causing them to suffer extremely heavy losses. In the end, he even sealed up the passage between the 2 worlds. Our grievances with the world of forsaken saints have been established since ancient times. Coupled with the recent battles we've had with the world of forsaken saints, our worlds are like fire and water. If we lose this place, our world will probably be reduced to ashes or even completely destroyed. Everyone felt very sorrowful when they heard that. Their joy from repelling the world of forsaken saints immediately vanished. They all understood that the Tianyuan continent could use the Divine Hall to suppress the world of forsaken saints for a few decades at most, or even less. They did not have much time to catch their breaths, so where was their chance of survival in the future? We need to have a supreme expert who can stand on par with the Spirit King in the next few years, Tianjian said with a heavy voice as he slowly glanced past everyone. Everyone felt a heavy pressure. The reason why their strength had increased so quickly was because they had either obtained legacies or possessed heaven-defying, heavenly resources. However, Houston and the White Tiger's legacies had all been used up, so it was impossible for their strength to undergo a second qualitative leap. Changyang Mingyue had only been able to reach her turnants in such a short amount of time because of the 10,000-year ice soul. However, there were only 3 10,000-year ice souls, and they had taken a total of 3 million years to condense. It was impossible for them to obtain a fourth. As for Shangguan Mu, she was blessed by the heavens because she was the mother of the innate chaotic body, so her strength increased extremely quickly. However, it was impossible for her to reach a level where she could stand on par with the Spirit King in such a short amount of time. This was because as her cultivation increased, her strength would slow down. My strength won't increase in a short amount of time either. There aren't that many resources for me to cultivate here. However, the corpse of the previous war god, Aruejin, is still sealed on the wasteland continent. It's just that the last beast fur is in the Divine Hall, so it can't be opened. Senior Tianjian, please give the last beast fur to Taita so that he can open the seal. He might be able to benefit from it. Jinchen's voice rang out. He and Taita walked in together. Their clothes were stained with blood. I'll go get the last beast fur right now. Tianjian's eyes lit up. Without any hesitation, he immediately went to retrieve the last beast fur. Tianjian left and went to the treasury to retrieve the beast fur. However, the other Origin Realm experts remained where they were. They did not follow him. Uncle Xiao, you finally emerged from seclusion. In the past, I had almost turned the entire world upside down in order to find you. Genshin looked at Houston and bitterly smiled. Houston gently sighed. I've always been cultivating in the depths of the death nest in the past few years. I've entered a selfless state, so I can't sense the passage of time. Although my strength has increased drastically, it's a pity that I haven't been able to see my son one last time. Houston's face was filled with some regret and sorrow. The light in his eyes dimmed as well. When he left the death nest, he had scanned Longevity Valley with the senses of his soul. He had seen Xiao Mi's tombstone. Just how many people could experience the pain of sending off their own child? P.S. I still haven't recovered today, so I'll do my best to make up for what I owe tomorrow. Chapter 1558. Although Houston had already known that Xiao Mi's death would come, and he could not change it at all, he still felt extremely pained when the day truly arrived. Jianqin sighed inside as well. Houston had not been present on the day of Xiao Mi's death, so he had not been able to personally send Xiao Mi off. Not only did Houston feel regret, but he and all the villagers in Longevity Valley felt regret as well. Jianqin had no idea how to comfort Houston when he saw his father's expression. He could understand Houston's feelings. After all, he was a father as well. Jianqin looked at the white tiger. The white tiger had already shrunk, only a meter long. Its snow-white fur had been dyed red, and it gave off a heavy smell of blood. The white tiger had also been quite injured in the battle earlier. Although it had made a full recovery now, the blood on its body had not been washed away. Jianqin was filled with joy when he sensed the white tiger's current strength. He felt happy for the white tiger. His relationship with the white tiger was extremely special. Even Jianqin did not know what kind of feelings he had for the white tiger. In the past, the white tiger had been by Jianqin's side when it had just been born. It had not even opened its eyes yet. In the past few years, it had basically been inseparable from Jianqin aside from the time they spent in the Beast God Hall. Jianqin had watched the white tiger grow from a cub that had not even opened its eyes back then to its current state. The two of them were like companions, but they were also like father and son. Xiao Bai, I never thought that you would obtain such a great fortune in the Beast God Hall. You managed to reach the origin realm while this world is sealed, and you've also comprehended laws. Your mother will definitely be happy for you, Jianqin said with a smile. Jianqin looked at the white tiger. Afterward, he paused and said with some doubt, You've already reached the origin realm, so why can't you assume a human form? Could it be that the ancient divine beast, the winged tiger, won't be able to assume a human form for the rest of its life? A sliver of hesitation appeared in the white tiger's eyes when he heard that. However, the hesitation vanished soon after, replaced by determination. His body began to rapidly change, and in the blink of an eye he turned into a boy who seemed to be around 8 or 9 years old. He was extremely valiant, and his skin was very tender, just like a newborn baby. His hair was snow white, a foot long, and it casually draped over his shoulders. A mysterious light seemed to circulate through it, as if every single strand of hair was filled with power. His face, which still possessed some childishness, possessed a resoluteness that completely did not match his age, making him seem like a general who had gone through countless battles. Tai Ta, Chongyang Mingyue, Shangguan Mu Shaoling, and Houston all stared at the white tiger. They all knew from the ancient legends that the winged tiger had always appeared as a beast and had never assumed a human form. As a result, people all believed that the winged tiger was unable to assume a human form even after reaching the origin realm due to its special bloodline. However, the scene before them had completely overturned this rumor. Xiao Ling arrived before the white tiger that had assumed a human form. She circled around the white tiger as her bright eyes were filled with doubt. She murmured, "Strange. Why do I suddenly feel a familiar presence from you?" Xiao Ling frowned in thought, but she was unable to understand it no matter what. The true name of our race is not the winged tiger, but the Siyu Tiger Emperor. It's one of the most powerful bloodlines in the world, right behind the ancestral dragon. The seal here is very powerful, but it's not enough to seal the bloodline of the Siyu Tiger Emperor. Due to the uniqueness of our bloodline, we can only assume a human form after reaching the origin realm, said the White Tiger Emperor. The little white tiger opened its mouth, its voice sounding a little immature. Perhaps it was because it had just started speaking, but its words were not very clear. No one present, including Jianqin, knew what the ancestral dragon was. Even the white tiger did not know what the ancestral dragon was, so they did not pay much attention to it. However, the weak sword spirits were greatly shocked when they heard the ancestral dragon. They became extremely shocked as their hearts churned. What is his legacy? How does he know about the ancestral dragon? What kind of heaven-defying race is the Siyu Tiger Emperor? Why have we never heard of them? How can they possess such a powerful bloodline, right behind the ancestral dragon? Even the sacred beast kings of our immortals world don't possess such a powerful bloodline. Could it be that he's exaggerating? He must have learned this information from the previous winged tiger through the legacy. Just what is the background of the winged tiger that appeared in ancient times? He actually knows about the existence of the ancestral dragon. The ancestral dragon has already disappeared from our immortals world for billions of years. It's definitely not something a normal person can know about. However, all those who know about the ancestral dragon are peak experts who have lived for countless years or important figures with great backgrounds. At that moment, the sword spirits began to truly take the white tiger seriously. Although they had lived for countless years and had never heard of the Siyu Tiger Emperor, they definitely would not be simple since they knew about the ancestral dragon. At this moment, Tianjian returned and walked over from afar. He held a snow-white beast hide in his hand. The white tiger's gaze immediately fell on the beast hide. The beast hide gave off an extremely familiar presence because it came from the Siyu tiger emperor of ancient times. It belonged to the same race as him, and the legacy he had obtained came from the previous Siyu tiger emperor. Tianjian handed the last beast hide to Tai Ta. Tai Ta held the beast hide with mixed feelings. After the previous war god of the same race as him, Aroidin, was slain by the winged tiger, his body had been sealed away for millions of years. Now he had finally gathered all 18 beast hides and obtained the key to unlocking the seal. He could now bury Ruijin's body in peace. The moment he held the beast hide, Taita did not have any thoughts of obtaining a fortune or legacy. He only had the thought of burying Ruijin's body in a grand manner. Aside from the beast hide, I found a few other things useful to us in the treasury, said Tianjian. Tianjian said. Then, with a wave of his hand, many jade boxes flew out from his space ring. There were over 1,000 of them. Several people were curious. One by one, they picked up some jade boxes and opened them. They found that the jade boxes contained some high-level magic cores and various kinds of medicinal pills. Most of the magic cores were at the 9th level, while the rest were at the 8th level. These things should have been left behind by the past masters of this divine hall, due to the formations sealing the jade boxes. The things inside are in extremely good condition. Although I don't know how long they've been stored, they're still effective, said Tianjian. Chapter 1559. Every single jade bottle has a description of these pills. Not only are there pills that can heal wounds, but there are also pills that can recover Saint Force. Coupled with these Class 8 and 9 monster cores, they should be able to recover some origin energy. Tianjian pointed at the jade boxes as he explained to everyone. Really? Then let me try them first and see if they taste good. Xiao Ling's eyes lit up as she excitedly picked up a jade bottle filled with Saint Force recovery pills. She gently shook it in her hand, and a series of clinking sounds rang out from the jade bottle. From the sound of it, there seemed to be around a dozen pills inside. Xiao Ling didn't hesitate in the slightest as she immediately opened the lid. She didn't care how many pills were inside as she directly poured them all into her mouth. After chewing a few times, she swallowed them all. Everyone stared at Xiao Ling. Xiao Ling's actions were equivalent to testing the pills. Just how great of an effect these pills would have on Origin Realm experts would be revealed very soon. A few seconds later, Xiao Ling frowned. He pouted and said with great dissatisfaction, "It doesn't taste good at all. Only a tiny amount of origin energy can be recovered. It's the same as not eating it at all." Everyone became disappointed when they heard that, but they did not become dejected. They had expected this result long ago. After all, these pills were left behind by past holy emperors. Perhaps they would be of great use to holy emperors, but they would not necessarily be useful to Origin Realm experts. Houston picked up a Class 9 monster core, and a bloody mist immediately surged from his palm, enveloping the Class 9 monster core. Within the bloody mist, the Class 9 monster core immediately shrank at a visible rate. Not long after, the monster core completely disappeared, having turned into pure energy that was absorbed by Houston. No, Class 9 monster cores are still useless to us. They can't recover any origin energy. Let's use these monster cores to maintain the formations of the Divine Hull. We can leave the pills for the Holy Emperor and Holy Emperor. Jianqin shook his head. Houston shook his head. The items that Tianjian had taken from the treasury were not enough to help people who had reached the Origin Realm. At this moment, Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly thought of the many heavenly resources he had obtained in the Xianhuang microcosm. There was an immortal fruit that specialized in recovering energy. He wondered if the fruit could recover his origin energy. Thinking up to there, Jian Qin immediately took out a few immortal fruits from his space ring. They were only the size of walnuts, and they were milky white. They seemed as smooth as jade, cute and obedient. They gave off an enchanting fragrance. The fragrance from the immortal fruits attracted everyone's attention as soon as possible. They all stared at the milky white fruits in Jianqin's hand. Xiao Ling could not help but gulp. Her gaze became filled with desire as she stared at the immortal fruits. The fragrance had deeply attracted her, making her tempted to devour them all in a single gulp. These are mortal energy fruits. They're extremely high quality, heavenly resources. It's said that their only use is to recover energy. I think they should be of great help in recovering origin energy, Jianqin said. The sword spirits had told him all of this in the past. He only knew that the mortal energy fruits could be used to recover immortal yuan, but he would only know if they could be used to recover origin energy after trying them out. Big brother, let's let Xiao Ling try them first. Xiao Ling snatched the mortal energy fruits from Jianqin's hand eagerly. She immediately tossed one into her mouth and wolfed it down. After eating the first one, Xiao Ling did not seem to have had enough. Just when she wanted to eat the second one, her face suddenly changed. Her face immediately reddened. She felt like the first mortal energy fruit had turned into extremely pure and tremendous energy that filled her entire body. Xiao Ling did not even have the time to say anything. She immediately sat down and began to refine the tremendous energy in her body. The Origin Realm experts present rejoiced when they saw this. They could clearly sense that Xiao Ling's presence was rapidly strengthening. Did that not mean that the mortal energy fruits were useful to Origin Realm experts like them? Moreover, the effects were extremely great. Xiao Ling finally woke up after half a day. Her innocent face immediately lit up with excitement as she cheered. Big brother, this fruit can really recover origin energy. Xiao Ling only ate one and she's already recovered all of her origin energy. Fantastic, this is fantastic. With these mortal energy fruits, we'll be able to last even longer. Brother, may I ask how many of these fruits you have? Changyang Mingyue was also excited. She looked at Jianqin eagerly. Smiles appeared on everyone's faces. The appearance of the mortal energy fruit was like sending charcoal in snowy weather to them. Everyone looked at Jianqin. At this moment, they were all extremely concerned about the number of mortal energy fruits he had. If there were enough of them, they would be able to last for a century at the very least, or even longer. However, if there were only a few of them, the effects would not be as great as they had imagined. Jianqin could not help but reveal a sliver of confidence when he saw everyone looking at him. He said, "Don't worry, there's definitely a lot of mortal energy fruits. It'll be enough for you to last for a very long time." With a wave of Jianqin's hand, over 300 wooden boxes immediately flew out. These wooden boxes were all made from wood from the Xianhuang microcosm. They seemed extremely crude. Although the wooden boxes seemed very ordinary, the items inside were heaven-defying heavenly resources. Jianqin had found several mortal energy fruit trees in the Xianhuang microcosm. He had obtained over 500 mortal energy fruits of various grades. This time, he gave over 300 of them to all the people who had reached the origin realm. Although Tianjian had reached the level of the Holy Emperor, he was the person who controlled the Divine Hall, so he received a few mortal energy fruits as well. Fantastic! With these mortal energy fruits, we don't need to worry about origin energy anymore. It's just a pity that they can only be used to recover and not increase our strength, Houston said with some pity. Chapter 1560. Fantastic! With these mortal energy fruits, we don't need to worry about origin energy anymore. It's just a pity that the mortal energy fruits can only be used to recover and not increase our strength, Houston said with some pity. Jianqin still had a few immortal fruits of 5 elements that could increase strength in his space ring. They also came from the Xianhuang microcosm, but the effects of the fruits were just too potent. They could only be consumed after being refined into pills with other materials. However, it was impossible to find an alchemist who could refine immortal tier heavenly resources here, so he did not take them out. A few holy emperors walked in from outside and handed over the space rings of the origin realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. At the same time, they reported the casualties of the four races. Although the Tianyuan continent had achieved a narrow victory in this battle, forcing the invasion of the world of Forsaken Saints to retreat, they had suffered extremely heavy losses as well. The saint rulers, holy emperors, and holy emperors who had taken part in the battle amounted to several tens of thousands of people, close to 100,000. However, less than 1,000 people had survived the battle. 99% of them had died. As for the puppets that could revive with saint weapons, they had all died. Not a single one remained. Jianqin saw many familiar names on the list of people who had died. There were the great elders of the protector clans, the ancestors of the ancient clans, the imperial protector of the three empires, the ancestral emperor, and so on. Among the 10 great guardian clans, there were even a few great elders who were completely annihilated. Even the saints who participated in the battle were all killed. Very few people survived. Only Changyang Zuyin Xiao and Changyang Feiyun had survived out of the great elders of the protector clan of Chanyang Prefecture. However, they were heavily injured and basically on the brink of death. Chanyang Zhu Xiao and the great elders of the Yuan and Qing branches had all died. Jianqin's heart immediately became heavy when he received this news. Sorrow filled his face as tears began to well up in his eyes. He did not care about the people of the Yuan and Qing branches, but Changyang Zhu Xiao was his great-grandfather. He had fallen out with the two branches over the matter of the saint's fruit, resulting in a great battle in his miniature world. Back then, Changyang Zhu Xiao had risked the collapse of his miniature world to use the founding god's fist to fight against Changyang Qinyan. Afterwards, he had even left the protector clan of Chanyang Prefecture with the people of the Zhu branch living in Lore City. However, he had never mentioned the matter of the saint's fruit, which had deeply moved Jianqin. Changyang Zhu Xiao was a powerful and benevolent old man in Jianqin's heart. At the same time, he was Jianqin's most respected great-grandfather. However, this benevolent old man had died just like that, which made Jianqin feel extremely pained. Even now, he could still clearly remember Changyang Zhu Xiao's benevolent smile and how he had fought against Changyang Qinyan without any hesitation to protect him in the protector clan. Great-grandfather, rest in peace. I will definitely avenge you personally, Jianqin murmured. His voice was heavy, but it was unable to hide his deep sorrow. He understood that Changyang Zhu Xiao's benevolent face would only exist in his memories. He would never be able to see that face again, nor would he be able to hear that familiar voice. Changyang Zhu Xiao's soul had been wiped out. Even as a Class 9 Radiant Saint Master, he was powerless to revive him. The ability of high-class Radiant Saint Masters to revive the dead did not mean that they could revive everyone who had died. Instead, they needed to satisfy two conditions. First, the body had to exist. Second, there had to be a possibility of revival as long as the soul had not been wiped out. Where's my father? How's my father? Shangguan Mu, or seemed to think of something when she saw Jianqin's expression. Her face suddenly changed and she suddenly asked. Her voice was filled with urgency, while her face was filled with deep worry. Many people already knew about the father-daughter relationship between Shangguan Mu, and Hao Wu. A sliver of respect immediately appeared on the faces of the Holy Emperor in charge of counting the casualties when they heard Shangguan Mu's question. Many people had witnessed how Shangguan Mu had stopped over a dozen Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints, all by herself. Even though she was younger than many of the Holy Emperor, her great strength had convinced all the experts of the four races. The Holy Emperor in charge of counting the casualties dared not tarry. Just when he was about to speak, Shangguan Mu had already rushed out. She was extremely worried. During the peaceful days, Shangguan Mu had always resented Hao Wu due to some matters of the past. She refused to accept Hao Wu as her father, but now, when she realized that Hao Wu might die here just like Jianqin's great-grandfather, the Changyang ancestor, did she come to a sudden understanding. As it turned out, she cared about her father so much that she did not want to see him die here. Only when you truly lost some things would you understand just how important they were. At this moment, Guihai Yidao, Feng Xiaotian, and Yang Lai entered the divine hall with the support of the Holy Emperor. The three of them had not died in the battle. Instead, they were extremely heavily injured, so they had lost the ability to fight. Even now, they had only managed to enter the divine hall with the assistance of the Holy Emperor. Even walking had become difficult. Otherwise, they probably would not have been able to fly into the divine hall that hovered in the air. Everyone was overjoyed by the return of the three of them. Many people had thought that the three of them were dead, so they were naturally overjoyed when they discovered that they were still alive. After all, the three of them possessed battle prowess equivalent to the Origin Realm. The Tianyuan continent needed experts like that just far too much. Jianqin suppressed his sorrow as well. He personally cast a Radiant Saint technique, using his Class 9 Radiant Saint Master Origin energy to heal the three of them. Fortunately, we still have such a powerful divine hall, or the consequences would have been unthinkable. Yang, Li, Guihai Yidao, and Guihai Yidao all became relieved when they learnt about the outcome of the battle. The three of them made a full recovery in just 4 hours with the recovery of Class 9, Radiant Saint Master Origin energy. Afterward, they all consumed a mortal energy fruit to recover their saint force, returning to their peak condition in the shortest amount of time possible. Chapter 1561. Jianqin hovered in the air as he walked out of the divine hall of Mercenary City. He looked at the Tianyuan continent that had just been ravaged by the flames of battle. He saw many sainthood experts fly around in the air as they dealt with the aftermath of the battle. Many of them carried corpses and buried them. Their faces were filled with sorrow or numbness. There had been far too many casualties in the battle this time. Only 1% of the people who had taken part in the battle had survived in the end. Many of them had lost their friends and family in the battle. Among these people who had died, there were not many whose corpses could be found. Almost all of them were severed limbs, and there were even more people who did not even have a corpse left behind. Their entire bodies had collapsed, turning into countless pieces of flesh and rivers of blood. The ruins of Mercenary City had become an extremely huge and bottomless chasm. Dense cracks spread out in all directions from the center of the chasm. 4 of the cracks were extremely thick, crossing the entire continent and splitting it into 4. Perhaps in the near future, the 4 huge cracks across the continent would turn into 4 vast rivers. Jianqin gently sighed as he hovered in the air as he looked at the devastated Tianyuan continent. In the blink of an eye, the continent that he was so familiar with had become like this, which made him feel very uncomfortable. Afterward, Jianqin expanded the senses of his soul, enveloping the entire continent in a single moment. Although the battle had erupted in the ruins of Mercenary City, not only had the terrifying shockwaves of the battle split the continent into 4, but even the region several million kilometers away had been greatly affected. An unprecedented earthquake erupted on the continent, causing many cities to collapse and many mountain ranges to collapse. However, at this moment, Jianqin's face suddenly changed. He immediately stepped onto the Ziying sword and shot off into the distance as a violet streak of light. The Ziying sword was damaged, covered in cracks. Even the sword's spirit had been affected by the failure of the fusion of the 2 swords, becoming extremely weak. However, the swords were immortal artifacts after all. Even though they were damaged, they could still be used. As long as they did not undergo a great battle, they would not be completely destroyed, but their power would decrease by a lot. Jianqin crossed several million kilometers with extreme speed on the Ziying sword before arriving on a lone mountain in the end. The reason why it was a lone mountain was because it was the only mountain within a radius of 1,000 kilometers. Aside from that, there was nothing else within the radius of 1,000 kilometers. It was just a desolate plain. On this lonely mountain, there was a woman in white lying on the ground. Her appearance couldn't be considered to be devastatingly beautiful, but she was still quite pretty. She was a beauty of her generation. Her face was pale and her eyes were closed as she lay on the ground, unconscious. In the center of her brows, there was a finger-sized hole with blood flowing out. This face of hers made her look somewhat malevolent and terrifying. The woman was Kea, who had been captured by an Origin Realm expert from the world of Forsaken Saints. Beside Kea, the seven-colored heaven-devouring beast had shrunk to the size of a fist. It flew around Kea in an extremely anxious manner as it buzzed, as if it was calling out to Kea. However, at this moment, the seven-colored heaven-devouring beast seemed to sense something. It immediately swelled up, becoming 3 meters tall as it stood beside Kea. Its fist-sized eyes were filled with caution, but when it saw that it was Gentian, the caution in its eyes immediately vanished. It returned to the size of a fist before flying around Gentian. It buzzed in an extremely anxious manner, as if it was trying to tell Gentian to save Kea. Gentian crouched down before Kea and looked at the bloody hole between her eyebrows. His face immediately became extremely sunken. Kea is not dead. Her wounds are very easy to heal. The only problem is that her soul is extremely heavily injured. Only a sliver of her soul remains, so her soul was almost wiped out. Gentian quickly checked Kea's wounds. He was very stern. Kea's situation was extremely dangerous. She was basically on the brink of death. Afterwards, Gentian began to use a Radiant Saint technique to heal Kea's wounds. Before a Class 9 Radiant Saint Master, even the most severe wounds could be healed in an extremely short amount of time. Aside from the damage to her soul, Kea's wounds were not particularly severe. Under Gentian's healing, she made a full recovery very quickly. The finger-sized hole between her eyebrows vanished as well, only leaving behind some blood. The seven-colored, heaven-devouring beast fell silent the moment Gentian began to heal. It lay to one side quietly as it stared at Gentian and Kea with its beady eyes. Its eyes were filled with intelligence. Although it was unable to assume a human form, it clearly possessed quite a high level of intelligence. With a flip of his hand, Gentian pulled out a piece of amethyst spiritual bamboo from his space ring. He extracted its sap and pressed it against Kea's forehead. As soon as the sap came in contact with her forehead, it silently seeped in, turning into a clear presence that began to nourish Kea's soul. The wounds to Kea's soul could no longer be healed by Radiant Saint Masters, so the amethyst spiritual bamboo was the only heavenly resource that Gentian possessed that could heal the soul. Moreover, it had reached the immortal tier, so it was definitely extraordinary. Gentian knew very well just how effective it was when it came to healing the soul. However, Gentian felt uncertain when he used the sap to heal Kea's soul, because Kea's soul was not as simple as just being injured. If it were not for the fact that a sliver of her soul remained, she probably would have been wiped out already. As expected, not only did Kea not wake up after using the sap, but Gentian could also sense that the sliver of soul that Kea had left behind showed no signs of strengthening either. Gentian frowned as he thought to himself, how can this be? Even if this drop of amethyst spiritual bamboo can't heal Kea, it should be able to strengthen Kea's soul at the very least with its powerful effects. After a moment of silence, Gentian pulled out a second piece of amethyst spiritual bamboo and used it on Kea, but the results were the same. The effects of the amethyst spiritual bamboo seemed to be completely ineffective on Kea. Chapter 1562. Suddenly, a gleam of light flashed through Gentian's eyes. He whispered, "That's not right. Even if the sap of the amethyst spiritual bamboo is ineffective on Kea, Kea has already absorbed the sap. At the very least, it should have left a trace in Kea's head. Why can't I find any trace of the amethyst spiritual bamboo in Kea's head? Does the sap automatically vanish as soon as it enters Kea's head?" After a moment of hesitation, Gentian gritted his teeth and took out the amethyst spiritual bamboo again, despite his heartache. He pressed the sap between Kea's eyebrows. The amethyst spiritual bamboo was extremely precious. He had not obtained much of it in the Xianhuang microcosm. He had already used up more than half of it over the years. Now that he had used up 3 more, he only had a few left. This time, Jianqin paid close attention to Keia's changes. Under his observation, he could clearly sense that the sap did not have time to nourish Keia's soul at all after it entered Keia's soul. It suddenly vanished without a trace. Jianqin was stunned on the spot. Why had the sap suddenly vanished? Where had it gone? He could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. Even if the sap was ineffective on Keia and could not heal Keia's soul, it should not have vanished just like that. He had ingested the amethyst spiritual bamboo many times before, so he knew exactly how it healed the soul. However, he had never seen something as eerie as this. Where did this drop of amethyst spiritual bamboo juice go? Jianqin pondered this question over and over again, but no matter how he thought about it, he could not come up with a conclusion. He could not understand it at all. Jianqin sighed at the sky and became rather dejected. He knew that there was probably nothing he could do to wake up Keia right now because the only thing on him that could heal the soul was the sap of the amethyst spiritual bamboo. When Jianqin unconsciously glanced at the vast region, his face immediately stiffened. He had enveloped the entire Tianyuan continent with the senses of his soul several times in the past. Although he did not dare to say that he knew every inch of the continent like the back of his hand, he was still familiar with the general structure and environment. He just happened to remember this place. In his memories, this place was a vast mountain range that overlapped with each other in a majestic manner. However, a large portion of the mountain range had mysteriously vanished, replaced by a vast plain that spanned 1,000 kilometers. Only Keia lay on a mountain peak. What's happened here? Jianqin frowned. He was filled with doubt. Even if an intense battle had taken place here, destroying everything in a radius of 1,000 kilometers, there should still be some rocks left behind. According to his observations, it did not seem like an intense battle had taken place here because the plains were just too flat. There were no signs of battle at all. Jianqin slowly picked up Keia and flew off the mountain peak. He landed on the ground, and as soon as his swords landed, they sank deeply into the ground. The flat ground was covered in a thick layer of dust. The dust came from the mountains in a radius of 1,000 kilometers. Jianqin immediately became extremely shocked when he reached this conclusion. His heart churned. With his ability, if he was asked to destroy the mountains within 1,000 miles, he could easily do it. However, he would inevitably leave behind a ground full of rubble and traces of battle. However, he would definitely not be able to turn the mountains within 1,000 miles into ashes. What's going on here? Who was it that turned all the mountains within 1,000 miles into ashes? Jianqin became extremely stern. He could clearly sense just how powerful the force that had destroyed this place was. He could only think of 2 people who possessed such great strength. The first was Protector Shui of the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall, and the second was the elven god tree transformed from the greatest divine king of the god race, Aladona. The 2 of them were peak experts at godhood. However, Aladona had been heavily injured by Protector Shui and was extremely weak. She had already sunk into a slumber, so she probably did not possess such power. According to Jianqin's understanding of Protector Shui, she would not interfere with the matters of the Tianyuan continent. Even if the Tianyuan continent was destroyed, she would not even glance at it. There was no reason for her to interfere. Is there a third expert who doesn't belong to this world other than Aladona and Protector Shui, the 2 divine kings? Otherwise, how could something like this have happened? Jianqin guessed inside, but he was uncertain. He had no clue whether there was a 3rd expert on the level of Aladona and Protector Shui. This was because both the elven race's ancient elven god tree and the Arctic ice goddess temple had existed for countless years and had long been known to the world. It was just that they had always been shrouded in a mysterious veil that had never been uncovered. Now, There was no other force or peerless powerhouse with the same mysterious veil among the four races. Jianshan moved through the region, visiting various places. He carefully observed every single trace in an attempt to find some clues, but he came up empty-handed in the end. In the end, Jianshan could only leave the place filled with doubts. However, he firmly remembered the strangeness of the place. Jianshan returned to the Supreme Divine Hall with the unconscious Kea. He temporarily found a quiet room for Kea. He knew that Kea was not truly dead, so he did not give up on saving Kea. The seven-colored, heaven-devouring beast remained by Kea's side the entire time. Its intelligent eyes would be filled with caution and vigilance from time to time. Clearly, it was protecting Kea's safety. Jianshan left again after sending Kea back. He headed to the Sea Realm. He did not take part in the cleanup of the Tianyuan continent. Instead, he left it to others. After the intense battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, the Sea Realm had become much more peaceful. However, the peaceful atmosphere was filled with a heavy sense of depression and sorrow. The Sea Realm had lost many sainthood experts in the battle this time, including many ancestors of large clans and organizations. They possessed great statuses. Their deaths were a huge blow to their clans and organizations. Many people from large clans and organizations hung up white flags in various places of the Sea Realm to send off their fallen seniors. Chapter 1563. After the battle, the Serpent God Hall and the Heaven's Spirit Hall began to decline. Only the Poseidon Hall maintained its former prestige because the Hall Master of the Poseidon Hall and Atlantis, who had just broken through, were still alive. The Poseidon Hall possessed two emperors, which was unique in the Sea Realm. At the same time, the Sea Goddess was still alive. It was said that the Poseidon Hall had been founded by Poseidon in ancient times, which immediately made the Poseidon Hall flourish like the midday sun. Jianshan flew through the Sea Realm on his sword. He seemed to have turned into a violet streak of light, shooting through the sky like a comet. He vanished in the blink of an eye. He moved extremely quickly. Jianshan had already extended the senses of his soul along the way to the Poseidon Hall to observe the situation of the sea race after the battle. He discovered the Turtle Clan. However, the Turtle Clan was also shrouded in heavy sorrow. The elders who had reached the level of Holy Emperor had taken part in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. In the end, only one of them survived. The others, including Taido, had all died in the battle. Jianshan stood on the Ziying sword and quickly flew over 10,000 kilometers from the Turtle Clan. He directly made his way to the Poseidon Hall. He did not go to the Turtle Clan. There was nothing in the Turtle Clan that he could remember. Perhaps the only person he could remember was the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan who had risked his life to save him. The reason why he had become the ruler of the Turtle Clan was all to complete the Grand Elder's final wish. Now that he had successfully strengthened the Turtle Clan and made it a peak clan in the Sea Realm, he had completed the Grand Elder's final wish. From today onwards, he would no longer be part of the Turtle Clan. The Poseidon Hall was a majestic divine hall. It was completely azure and shone with a dazzling light. It hovered in the air like a primordial beast, giving off an invisible pressure that permeated the air. Even the Holy Emperor felt greatly intimidated by it. The experts of the Sea Goddess Hall had all declined as well. The entire divine hall seemed to have become much emptier all of a sudden. Many saint kings had died, and even the envoys who were only saint rulers had decreased by a lot. When Jianshan stepped into the huge divine hall, he was immediately recognized by a few envoys. They all bowed to Jianshan politely before reporting to the hall master of the Poseidon Hall as quickly as they could. Very soon, the hall master of the Poseidon Hall and the second emperor of the Poseidon Hall emerged together. This time, the two of them did not disguise their appearances, revealing their alluring beauty. At a closer glance, it was not difficult to discover that the two of them shared some similarities. After exchanging some pleasantries, Yadrium invited Jianshan to the main hall. Jianqin, we sisters were too heavily injured and no longer had the strength to fight. As a result, we could only flee ahead of time. We didn't manage to hold on until the very end. Please forgive us, said the hall master of the Poseidon Hall as soon as the three of them sat down. Her face was filled with guilt. What are you saying, hall master? I feel happy for you that you were able to successfully escape from the situation back then. It's just a pity that my great-grandfather Changyang Zhu Xiao did not manage to escape and died on the battlefield. Jianqin's voice was filled with sorrow. If Changyang Zhu Xiao had managed to escape, he would have been able to heal him no matter how heavily injured he was. I never thought that the Divine Hall of Mercenary City would be so powerful, able to stop returnants experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. Jianqin, I wonder how long the Divine Hall can last. Poseidon's illusionary figure silently appeared in the hall and stared at Jianqin as he asked. Jianqin sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed down his grief. He said, The Divine Hall of Mercenary City may be powerful, but maintaining its formations is not an easy task. It requires the combined efforts of all the Origin Realm experts and the many Holy Emperor. Only then can the Divine Hall unleash enough power to stop the world of Forsaken Saints. I've come this time to assist Hall Master Poseidon and Elder Atlantis in recovering, as well as to rebuild your Majesty's body. The Supreme Divine Hall of Mercenary City still requires your Majesty Poseidon's assistance. I can rebuild my body, but it's difficult for me to recover origin energy, so I probably won't be able to help much. After all, the energy of the world in the sea realm became much thinner when I rebuilt my body the first time. I won't be able to recover it for a very long time, so I can't draw on the spring water of the sea realm again. Otherwise, the energy of the world in the sea realm will dry up, and all the sea race won't be able to cultivate. Poseidon gently sighed. Jianqin smiled confidently. Don't worry, Your Majesty. I just happen to possess a heavenly resource that can recover origin energy. Once Your Majesty rebuilds your body, you only need to ingest a single fruit, and you'll be able to recover to your peak condition in an extremely short amount of time. With that, immortal energy fruit appeared in Jianqin's hand. It gave off an intoxicating fragrance. Poseidon's eyes immediately lit up when he heard that. He stared at the mortal energy fruit and asked in disbelief, Is that true? I only need a single fruit like this to recover to my peak condition? Absolutely, Jianqin swore. Afterward, Jianqin immediately began to move. He assisted Poseidon in rebuilding his body a second time. He had found quite a lot of materials in the Xianhuang microcosm, so he still had a lot in stock. Even if he rebuilt his body 100 times, they would not be used up, so he did not need to worry about the lack of materials. In order to ensure that nothing would go wrong during the second reconstruction, Jianqin personally stood guard for Poseidon. Yadrium and Atlantis, who had recovered, joined in later on as well. Due to his experience from the first reconstruction, Poseidon's second reconstruction was much faster. He successfully completed it in just 7 days. After ingesting a mortal energy fruit, he recovered all his strength on the second day. After recovering his strength, Poseidon immediately went to the Tianyuan continent to stand guard in the Supreme Divine Hall. Jianqin also completed his mission in the sea realm and returned to the Flame Mercenaries. He stood outside the Bright Moon Divine Hall and took the initiative to see Fairy Haoyue. However, the door to the Divine Hall was firmly shut this time, as if Jianqin had been refused entry. Jianqin, you want me to participate in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints? Fairy Haoyue's vague voice rang out in Jianqin's head. She had already sensed Jianqin's arrival, but she did not allow Jianqin to enter the Divine Hall. Jianqin knew that Fairy Haoyue possessed a very great background. He clasped his hands. Fairy Haoyue, I have materials that can rebuild your body. I do indeed hope that you can recover some of your strength so that you can fend off the world of Forsaken Saints with us. After all, you live on the Tianyuan continent right now. If the front lines fall, you probably won't be able to protect yourself. Jianqin, you should go. I won't help you fend off the world of forsaken saints. Let's not even talk about the fact that I can't be bothered to use your low-grade materials to rebuild my body. Even if I still had my body, I wouldn't offend the world of forsaken saints. Fairy Hayua declined without any hesitation. Why is that? Jianqin asked in confusion. Chapter 1564. Jianqin frowned when he heard that. He had never thought that the people from the world of forsaken saints would have such a great background, where they actually had a background in the saints' world. Fairy Hayua is the spirit sages very powerful in the saints' world? Since they have a background in the saints' world, why have they invaded our Tianyuan continent? And according to what I know, the people from the world of forsaken saints have existed for an extremely long time. If they had a background in the saints' world, the origin realm experts would have gone to the saints' world long ago. Why are they still in the lower world? Jianqin asked. Fairy Hayua fell silent for a while before replying. The spirit sages are a large clan in the saints' world. They're extremely powerful. Although several large sects and clans in the saints' world have worked together to attack the spirit sages for certain reasons, causing them to suffer heavy losses and losing 2 grand prime ancestors, the spirit sages still cannot be underestimated. They're not an existence that our moon god hall can provoke. Moreover, the people from the world of forsaken saints are only extremely similar to the spirit sages. We still haven't confirmed whether they are from the saints' world, but the spirit sages are just too powerful. As long as there's even the slightest chance that they are from the spirit sages, I can't do anything. Fairy Hayu's voice was rather stern. She was extremely fearful of the spirit sages, and she could not afford to provoke a powerful enemy for the moon god hall because of her. Moreover, even if the moon god hall did not fear the spirit sages, she had no reason to deal with them. After all, she was not a person of the Tianyuan continent. Although she had lived in this world for some time, she had no attachment to the Tianyuan continent. In her heart, it made no difference whether the Tianyuan continent was occupied by humans or the spirit sages. Fairy Hayua, if the people from the world of forsaken saints really are the spirit sages of the saints' world, won't we be leaving behind a huge problem if we become enemies with them? Jianqin asked. Your grievances with the world of forsaken saints are nothing more than child's play before the spirit sages of the saints' world. After all, the spirit sages are a large clan, so why would they bother with you people who haven't even reached godhood over something as trivial as a lower world? Unless the direct descendant of some great figure dies at your hands. However, even if something like that happens, the spirit sages won't be able to do anything to you, because the war god of the god clan is among you. The god clan is a peak clan in the saints' world. When the war god of the god clan was still alive, the god clan was known as the greatest organization in the saints' world. Although the war god has already died, causing the god clan to lose their title as the greatest organization in the saints' world, the current god clan is still not in existence that regular large sects and clans dare to provoke. Jianqin knew that it was impossible to get Fairy Hayua to deal with the world of forsaken saints, so he ended his conversation with Fairy Hayua very soon and left. Jianqin, the seal of this world will vanish soon. At that time, the seal to the saints' world will vanish as well. It will be extremely difficult for me to go to the saints' world alone in my current state. I need you to assist me when the time comes and take my divine hall to the saints' world. As long as I have origin energy, I'll be able to reconstruct my body using a secret technique in the shortest amount of time possible. Fairy Hayua's voice rang out again. Jianqin paused. He knew that his relationship with Fairy Hayua was not exactly friendly. It was just a deal at most. The Fairy Hayua had accepted Yu as her disciple because she had seen through his potential. In return, he would take the Fairy Hayua away from this world and go to the saints' world. Jianqin was naturally extremely willing to make a deal like that. However, the problem with the world of forsaken saints had not been completely dealt with. Even if the seal to the saints' world vanished, he would not be able to leave in peace because he had far too many friends and family here. These people were powerful enough to protect themselves on the Tianyuan continent, But once they went to the saint's world, their lives would no longer be in their hands. As a result, even if he went to the saint's world, it was impossible for him to take all his friends and family with him. These people would have to live on the Tianyuan continent in the end. Before he left, he needed to create a peaceful and beautiful environment for his friends and family. Fairy Haoyue, it's been so many years. You should have some understanding of me. Do you think I'll be able to leave in peace before the matter with the world of forsaken saints is completely dealt with? Jianchen asked, You can take all your friends and family with you to the saint's world. Once we're there, I'll be able to recover my strength very quickly. At that time, I'll naturally be able to protect your friends and family. In return, I can open the door of God burial for you so that you can enter the God burial microcosm. With your talent, you'll be able to reach godhood very quickly if you cultivate there, Fairy Haoyue added. Jianchen gently shook his head. He did not agree to Fairy Haoyue's suggestion. It was not that Jianchen had not considered taking all his friends and family to the saint's world, but he still did not believe it was safe. After all, there were as many experts as there were clouds in the saint's world, and he was the one who called the shots. Even if he reached godhood, he would probably struggle to protect the people around him. Secondly, he was born on the Tianyuan continent in this life. He was a member of the human race and was revered as the greatest expert of the human race. He carried the hope of all the humans on the Tianyuan continent on his shoulders. So how could he leave alone and abandon the countless humans on the Tianyuan continent and throw them into dire straits? At the same time, Jianchen believed that the matter with the world of forsaken saints could be dealt with. His strength could skyrocket in a short amount of time, and that was by absorbing the energy from the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. The sword spirits had once said that if he absorbed all the energy in the rock, his chaotic body would even reach the 9th layer. According to the increase in strength with each layer, once he reached the 9th layer, just his personal strength alone would reach godhood, regardless of how terrifying his final battle prowess would be. The only thing that troubled Jianchen was that he could not absorb the energy from the Yin-Yang Saint Rock alone. He needed Shangguan Mu'er's assistance, or he would be courting death. After leaving the Bright Moon Divine Hall, Jianchen remained in the city, Lord's estate, to accompany Yu and his sister, Balian. Jianchen did not allow them to take part in the battle against the saints' world this time. They were the most important people to Jianchen. If they died on the battlefield, Jianchen would suffer for the rest of his life. In reality, they were not even as strong as the Holy Emperor, so even if they did take part in the battle, they would not be of much use. After all, they severely lacked battle experience. They were nowhere near as experienced as the saint rulers who had lived for several thousand years, the Holy Emperor. Brother, the world of forsaken saints is so powerful. The Divine Hall of Mercenary City can't remain there forever. What will we do if the Spirit King from the world of forsaken saints destroys the Divine Hall? Bai Lian worriedly asked. Her status was special as she was Jianchen's sister, so she knew many secrets. Don't worry. The Divine Hall of Mercenary City can keep the tunnel sealed for a few decades at the very least. After a few decades, we might not have to fear the world of forsaken saints anymore, Jianchen smiled. There was no worry on his face at all. However, he was thinking about whether it was time for him to talk to Shangguan Mu'er. Chapter 1565. Jianchen hugged Yu's slender breasts. You did not resist at all. She gently rested her head on Jianchen's shoulder with a sweet and happy smile. You carried a pouch on her. So a faint fragrance immediately permeated the air. It was inhaled by Jianchen through the tip of his nose. The pouch was made from extremely precious, wondrous flowers and herbs. It had the effect of calming the mind, so Jianchen immediately felt refreshed after inhaling the fragrance. He became less restless and more peaceful. Jianchen sucked in a deep breath and said, Yu is right. Lian, you don't have to worry about the world of forsaken saints. Although the Spirit King is very powerful, we still have a sliver of hope. It's just that this sliver of hope will take several years or even several decades to materialize. The appearance of the Supreme Divine Hall in Mercenary City just happens to buy us some precious time. With that, the ground suddenly began to shake violently. It was like an earthquake had occurred. Not only did the city lord's estate shake violently, but the entire city shook as well. An extremely powerful earthquake rocked the Tianyuan continent once again. The earthquake affected an extremely large area, originating from the ruins of Mercenary City 1,000,000 kilometers away. With the ruins of Mercenary City as the epicenter, the earthquake spread across the Tianyuan continent, covering most of it. Jianshin's face became stern. He said, "The world of Forsaken Saints is attacking the Supreme Divine Hall above the tunnel. I need to go there immediately." Jianshin no longer cared about Yu Yu and his sister. He immediately stood up and left the city lord's estate. "Brother, you have to be careful." "Jianshin, you have to return safely no matter what happens." Bailan and Yu Yu immediately followed him. Their eyes were filled with worry and reluctance to part with him. Even though the tunnel to the world of Forsaken Saints had been suppressed by the Supreme Divine Hall, preventing the people of the world of Forsaken Saints from coming over, they would still worry every time Jianshin left for the matters of the world of Forsaken Saints. They were afraid that something unexpected would happen. Jianshin left through the space gate in Flame City and headed to the ruins of Mercenary City. It was much faster than traveling 1,000,000 kilometers on his sword. When Jianshin arrived, deafening booms constantly rang out. The Supreme Divine Hall above the tunnel actually trembled gently. Extremely violent streams of energy leaked out from the bottom of the Divine Hall. They contained strands of extremely sharp sword chi. Wherever they passed, space would shatter and everything would be reduced to darkness. All matter would be reduced to nothingness. It was a terrifying destructive force. Even after enduring a full-powered strike from Ouyang Yangwen, the Divine Hall remained as steady as a mountain. It was unshakable. At the same time, Yonglai, Feng Shaotian, and Guihai Yidao were not present. There was no Poseidon, and all the Origin Realm experts were heavily injured. Even with that being the case, Ouyang Yangwen was unable to shake the Divine Hall at all. Yet now, all the Origin Realm experts on the Tianyuan continent had recovered their full strength and were supported by Yonglai, Guihai Yidao, and Poseidon. This meant that the Divine Hall was being attacked by an extremely terrifying expert, the Spirit King. Jianshin immediately thought of the person who was attacking the Divine Hall in the world of Forsaken Saints. Aside from the Spirit King, who had also comprehended the way of the sword and possessed a greater comprehension of the way of the sword than him, there was no other supreme expert with such strength. The current Spirit King was a godlike figure in the world of Forsaken Saints. He was the creator of a legend. Even Ouyang Yangwen, who was only a step away from reciprocity, and Xiongzhong were extremely fearful of the Spirit King. They obeyed all of his orders obediently, not daring to question him at all. At the same time, the Spirit King from the world of Forsaken Saints weighed down on Jianshin like a mountain, almost suffocating him. This was because he had already learnt about the rumors regarding the Spirit King from the world of Forsaken Saints. Not only had he reached mid-reciprocity, but his battle prowess was also on par with godhood experts. He was a legendary figure. His talent was unprecedented, and he was the greatest genius in the history of the world of Forsaken Saints. At the same time, he was the most powerful Spirit King in the history of the world of Forsaken Saints. In just a few hundred years, he had gone from a nameless figure to a sovereign of the world of Forsaken Saints. With a single movement, Jianshin entered the Supreme Divine Hall. The atmosphere within was extremely solemn. The Origin Realm experts were all present as they poured their Origin energy into a white jade seat in the center. They worked with the many saint rulers, holy emperors, and holy emperors outside to push the Divine Hall to its limits. They suppressed the space above the tunnel and blocked off the path of the world of Forsaken Saints. Jianshin directly arrived before the white jade seat and gently pressed his hand against it. He poured his chaotic force into the seat without holding back at all. Due to the uniqueness of Jian Chen's chaotic force, it was no ordinary energy. As a result, the trembling divine hall gradually calmed down as he poured in his chaotic force. However, deafening booms still rang out from the suppressed tunnel. As the divine hall gradually stabilized, the experts from the world of Forsaken Saints seemed to understand that it was impossible for them to break through the divine hall. They stopped attacking the divine hall, and the booms in the sky suddenly vanished as well. The people in the divine hall waited silently for a while. They all let out a sigh of relief when they saw that the divine hall was no longer under attack. They slowly pulled back their hands, but they were all extremely stern. This should be the Spirit King from the world of Forsaken Saints. He really is powerful. He attacked the divine hall alone. Yet we actually had to work together to stop him. Fortunately, he didn't come last time, or we wouldn't be his opponent even if we worked together. We wouldn't even be able to harm him at all, Feng Xiaotian said with a heavy voice. His brows were tightly furrowed. The strength of the attacks has completely exceeded the reciprocity realm. Only Godhood experts can stop the Spirit King. If we want the Divine Hall to block the attacks of Godhood experts, we'll need to consume several times more origin energy. Although our mortal energy fruits can recover origin energy, we can only last for a few decades at most. If the Spirit King constantly attacks the Divine Hall, we'll be able to hold on for even less time. We might even run out of mortal energy fruits in a few years, Yang Lai said sternly. It's impossible for any of us to break through to godhood in such a short amount of time. Just holding on won't work, Changyang Mingyue said. Her face was filled with worry. After a moment of hesitation, she clenched her teeth and said, I'll go find Protector Shui and see if she has any methods for me to break through to godhood in the shortest amount of time possible. With that, Changyang Mingyue left the Divine Hall. She hurried to the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall with lightning speed. Jianqin stared at Changyang Mingyue's departing figure deeply. He was probably the only one who knew Protector Shui's true strength. As someone who could kill the greatest divine king of the god race, Aladona, Protector Shui definitely possessed precious heavenly resources. If Changyang Mingyue really could break through to godhood, he would be extremely happy to see it. Although Protector Shui won't interfere with the matters of this world, Second Sister is clearly extremely important to her. If she helps Second Sister increase her strength, it shouldn't be considered as interfering with the matters of this world, Jianqin thought to himself. Then he looked at Shangguan Mu. After a moment of hesitation, he walked over and said, Mu, there's something I want to discuss with you. Shangguan Mu was emotionless. She hesitated slightly when she heard Jianqin's words, but she still nodded in the end. She left the Divine Hall with Jianqin. 1,000 kilometers away, Jianqin and Shangguan Mu stood on the clouds. They moved through the hazy sea of clouds like an immortal couple. Chapter 1566. Shangguan Mu wore a purple dress. Her indescribably beautiful face seemed like it was impossible for her to appear in this world. She seemed like a goddess from the 9 heavens. Although her eyes were cold, they were extremely spirited. They shone with a soul-stealing light, as if just her gaze was enough to take people's souls. Shangguan Mu fell silent when she heard Jianqin's words. She did not say anything for quite some time. Only her soul-stealing eyes flickered with mixed emotions. At this moment, she was struggling inside. She obviously understood what Jianqin meant. In this world, perhaps no one other than Changyang Mingyue could become powerful enough to fend off the Spirit King in just a few short decades through normal cultivation. Let alone reaching godhood, even a small increase in their strength would be extremely difficult because this world no longer had origin energy. After reaching the origin realm, their strength would no longer grow as quickly as sainthood. Now, the only thing that could allow their strength to grow rapidly in a short amount of time was the Yinyang Saint Rock. Shangguan Mu was very reluctant to mention the Yinyang Saint Rock, but she had never forgotten about it in all these years. The rock had given her a fortuitous encounter, but it had also hurt her. Can I deal with the Spirit King after absorbing the Yin-Yang Saint Rock? Shangguan Mu, finally asked after a long moment of silence. Her voice was rather unnatural, although she still felt some resistance towards the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. After so many years, even Xiaobao had grown up. She had gradually let go of some matters and accepted them. Not to mention, the Tianyuan continent was currently facing destruction. In just a few decades, all the people in this world would probably be wiped out or even destroyed. She needed to make a decision for Xiaobao. Jianqin sucked in a deep breath. He slowly said, the Yin-Yang Saint Rock is condensed from the Yin and Yang Qi of the world. It's an extremely great power, far greater than what we can imagine. It's more terrifying than any power we've ever seen. If the Yin-Yang Saint Rock we saw exploded, the entire universe would probably be destroyed. It's exactly because of the power of the Yin-Yang Saint Rock that I can only absorb it after reaching the 5th layer of the chaotic body. At the same time, I need to balance the Yin and Yang Qi, neutralizing the Yin and Yang Qi, making it gentle. Otherwise, I'll definitely die. With our current strength, if we completely absorb the Yin-Yang Saint Rock, we'll be able to reach reciprocity at the very least, or even break through reciprocity and reach godhood. However, with my battle prowess, I don't need to reach godhood at all. As long as I reach reciprocity, I won't need to fear the Spirit King, even if it's early reciprocity. Jianqin was filled with confidence. Although he knew that the Spirit King was also an expert who could challenge those at a higher level of cultivation, he was confident that he would not be any weaker than the Spirit King. Not only did he cultivate chaotic force, but he was also a Class 9 Radiant Saint Master. Once an intense battle broke out, his consumption of chaotic force would be several dozen times or even 100 times slower than his opponents. However, the drawback was that his chaotic force would recover over 100 times slower than other people's. Aside from that, he also possessed martial soul force and the ability to attack the soul. Although he had yet to grasp how to use martial soul force, so he was unable to unleash its full power, his soul would rapidly strengthen as his strength increased. That way, he could indirectly increase the power of his martial soul force. Even if he could not harm opponents of the same level of cultivation, he could still affect them a little. Shangguan Mu hesitated. She struggled inside. She knew that this might be the only way to protect Xiaobao, but she was unable to bring herself to agree to Jianqin's request to go to the Yin-Yang Saint Rock with Jianqin and absorb its energy to cultivate. Give me 3 days to think about it. I'll give you an answer in 3 days. After struggling for a while, Shangguan Mu still did not agree to Jianqin's request immediately. Although she had accepted many things in the past few years and had gradually accepted them, her relationship with Jianqin was nowhere near the level of Yu Yu and Huangwan. Jianqin looked at Shangguan Mu with some mixed feelings. He said, "This is the only way I can think of to fend off the world of Forsaken Saints right now. I'll be waiting for your reply in 3 days." With a flash of violet light, the Ziying sword appeared beneath Jianqin's feet. With that, Jianqin directly left, disappearing into the horizon as a violet streak of light. Shangguan Mu slowly sat down. She sat on a hazy sea of clouds as the fierce winds blew her hair into the air. Her indescribably beautiful face was filled with hesitation. In the extreme north of the Tianyuan continent, a huge world of ice faced the Tianyuan continent from afar. The battle on the Tianyuan continent was extremely intense, where the terrifying shockwaves had destroyed the entire continent. Even the Beast God continent, the Wasteland continent, and the Sea Realm had been greatly affected. However, the icy plains that were not far away from the Tianyuan continent were not damaged at all. They seemed the same as before without any changes at all. At this moment, in the depths of this ice field, in a place shrouded in white mist, there was a majestic, snow-white divine hall. The entire divine hall seemed to be carved out of ice crystals. Under the illumination of the sun, It shone with a dazzling 7-colored halo. In a secret room within the divine hall, Protector Shui sat in the air in her armor. An extremely powerful presence radiated from her. Terrifying energy ripples permeated the room. Even the slightest bit of her presence would be devastating to the world. At that moment, Protector Shui seemed to have become a god of war. She radiated with a supreme pressure and was so powerful that even the powerful Spirit King was as insignificant as an ant before her, let alone Jianshan. They could not even endure her presence. Protector Shui constantly formed seals with her hands before her chest as she tried her best to deduce the identity of the mysterious expert who had almost caused the formation to collapse. This matter was just too important to her. She had to figure out whether the expert was a friend or foe, as this concerned the safety of the snow goddess. Suddenly, Protector Shui's body began to tremble violently. She immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. She did not stop after spitting out the first mouthful of blood. She continued to spit out over a dozen mouthfuls of blood before finally stopping. Her body that was hovering in the air fell in an extremely miserable manner. She lay in the secret room. She was extremely weak. She had suffered extremely heavy injuries. Chapter 1567. Protector Shui, who ranked amongst the 3,000 divine kings of the Saints' world, and was so powerful that she could easily slay the greatest divine king of the god clan, Aladona, had completely lost her usual composure. Her cold eyes were filled with shock. If one could see her face under the mask, they would discover that she was also filled with shock and disbelief. With my current strength, it's possible for me to peer into infinite primes. Even if I fail, I won't suffer any backlash. If I peer into the chaotic prime, I might not be able to peer into his true body, but I'll be able to find some clues from the side. However, when I peered into the mysterious expert this time, I only slowly approached his identity based on a few clues, but I failed at all. Instead, I suffered such a powerful backlash. The mysterious expert's strength has definitely exceeded my imagination. He must be a grand prime. Protector Shui's voice trembled slightly. She slowly stood up and opened the door with a wave of her hand. She walked out with a heavy heart and thought, "This place has already been discovered. I can't stay here any longer. I have to leave as soon as possible. Or if the mysterious Grand Prime who found this place is an enemy, Her Majesty will be in danger. My death is nothing to be regretted, but I can't let Her Majesty be doomed." Protector Shui recovered her composure very quickly. Her eyes shone with a sharp light, and there was a sliver of undisguised sternness in them. If the great ice goddess was still alive, so what if an enemy Grand Prime discovered this place? The ice goddess would naturally be there to stop them. Unfortunately, the ice goddess had yet to recover from her injuries and was hibernating in the ice goddess hall. She was unable to help the snow goddess at all. Moreover, the ice goddess hall had rebelled, so the ice goddess was in danger right now. Protector Shui! Protector Shui! Just at this moment, Changyang Mingyue's voice rang out. She had found Protector Shui and was rushing over in her snow-white clothes. At this moment, Protector Shui was supporting herself with one hand on the ice wall. She appeared to be very weak. The specks of dark red blood on her snow-white armor were extremely conspicuous, a ghastly sight to behold. Changyang Mingyue saw the blood on Protector Shui from very far away and immediately became surprised. She shot over as a blur and asked in surprise, "Protector Shui, what happened to you?" Changyang Mingyue was filled with shock. She did not know Protector Shui's exact strength, but she knew she was powerful. Even though she had reached returnance, she still felt like Protector Shui was unfathomable. However, Protector Shui had actually been injured. She was unable to imagine just who in this world possessed the ability to injure Protector Shui. Protector Shui shook her head and said, "Your Highness, I'm fine. I just suffered some backlash." Changyang Mingyue let out a sigh of relief when she heard that. Fortunately, Protector Shui had not been injured by someone else, or that person's strength would have been far too terrifying. Protector Shui, do you have any methods for me to break through to godhood in a short amount of time? The Spirit King from the world of Forsaken Saints is just far too powerful. Only godhood experts can fight against him, Chanyang Mingyue directly said. Chanyang Mingyue directly stated her intentions. After spending some time with Protector Shui, she had basically gained an understanding of her. Protector Shui was completely centered around her. Aside from a few things that went against her principles, she basically listened to everything she said. Your Majesty, a grand prime of the saints' world has already discovered our world. I can't divine whether that expert is a friend or foe, so for the sake of your Majesty's safety, I need to take you away immediately. Once your Majesty arrives in the saints' world, I will help your Majesty break through to godhood as quickly as possible, Protector Shui said. Her voice was rather weak. What? You want to take me away immediately? Chanyang Mingyue was taken aback. She suddenly had an ill omen. Yes, Your Highness. For your safety, we need to leave immediately. We need to leave right now. Every moment we spend here increases the danger, said Protector Shui. No, I won't leave here. This is my home. Protector Shui, you're not allowed to take me away from home without my permission, Chanyang Mingyue called out. Chanyang Mingyue called out. Before she had even finished speaking, she turned around and ran outside. She understood Protector Shui extremely well. Protector Shui usually treated her with great respect, basically obeying her every word. Protector Shui completely treated her as a servant, but she would never listen to her when it came to Chanyang Mingyue's safety. Bang! With a heavy sound, the door to the Ice Goddess Hall slammed shut before Chanyang Mingyue could run out. Protector Shui moved extremely quickly. The moment the door closed, Chanyang Mingyue felt a powerful force rise up from beneath her feet. The Ice Goddess Hall had already left the icy plains where it had remained for over 3 million years, rising into the sky at an unbelievable speed. Protector Shui, let me out. Let me out quickly. My parents are still here. My brother is still here. You're not allowed to take me away, or I'll never forgive you. Chanyang Mingyue cried out in panic as she constantly slammed her hands against the door. Every single slap possessed great power, causing the door to produce a heavy thud. However, the Ice Goddess Hall was extremely tough, where even the Divine King's presence could easily endure it. With Chanyang Mingyue's strength, she would not be able to leave a mark on it, even if she used her full strength, let alone break through the door. Protector Shui! Chanyang Mingyue shrieked. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She turned around and lunged at Protector Shui. She clawed and bit at her in a frenzy. Her face was filled with worry. She knew that if Protector Shui really did take her to the saints' world this time, she would never be able to see her parents again. She might not even be able to see her elder brother and younger brother. All her family members would probably be destroyed by the people of the world of Forsaken Saints. Chanyang Mingyue furiously roared out as she wildly kicked Protector Shui. She even used her strength as a returnance expert to launch merciless attacks at Protector Shui. However, her attacks, which were powerful enough to destroy an entire region of space, were unable to harm Protector Shui at all. Protector Shui did not even sway. Just her armor had easily blocked Chanyang Mingyue's full-powered attacks. If any other returnance expert had acted so recklessly, Protector Shui would have reduced them to ashes long ago. However, not only did Protector Shui not fight back against Chanyang Mingyue's attacks, she even endured them silently. Protector Shui was extremely determined to leave. She placed Her Majesty's safety above all else. As long as Her Majesty could escape safely, she would not mind even if Her Majesty hated her. She firmly believed that once Her Majesty recovered her memories, she would forgive Her Majesty. She would forgive her for what she had done. As a result, Protector Shui remained indifferent no matter how intense Changyang Mingyue's reaction was. The ice goddess Hall entered outer space in an extremely short amount of time. At the same time, a deafening boom rang out. The tremendous formation in outer space shattered at that moment, erupting with extremely terrifying energy that wreaked havoc in outer space. It shattered space and devoured the sunlight, causing the entire world to sink into darkness. The formation had been cast down by Protector Shui in the past. At the same time, it had been cast down by the great ice goddess in the saints' world from an extremely great distance away. Not only could it hide the heavenly secrets, preventing the people of higher worlds from finding the whereabouts of the snow goddess, but it could also prevent the people of the Tianyuan continent from reaching the origin realm. At the same time, it sealed off the tunnel to the saints' world, preventing the people of this world from revealing the existence of the ice goddess Hall. At this moment, the formation shattered on its own with the departure of the ice goddess Hall. Not only did the destruction of the formation give the people of this world a chance to reach the origin realm, but the tunnel to the saints' world had also been opened. The destruction of the formation in outer space caused an extremely great disturbance. Let alone the origin realm experts of the Tianyuan continent, even the Holy Emperor and the Holy Emperor could sense the indescribably powerful ripples of energy that had suddenly erupted from outer space. In particular, the collapse of the formation caused the Tianyuan continent to fall into darkness. Countless people on the continent were alarmed, causing a great disturbance. All the experts in the Supreme Divine Hall of Mercenary City appeared outside as soon as possible. They all raised their heads and looked at the sky. All of their faces were filled with shock. In the shattered darkness, a divine hall that was much smaller than a finger shone with dazzling light. It quickly flew toward the end of the void. "It's the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall." Jian Qin cried out as his face suddenly changed. He immediately expanded the senses of his soul, directly extending it towards the Arctic. When his senses enveloped the Arctic, he saw that the layer of cold mist in the depths of the Arctic had vanished. At the same time, the ice goddess hall that stood on the icy tundra had vanished as well. It was also at this moment that a huge black hole suddenly appeared in outer space. Before the black hole, the ice goddess hall seemed like an ant. However, when the black hole appeared, the ice goddess hall sped up, charging into the black hole as a streak of light and disappearing. Jianqin's face became extremely sunken when he saw this. The collapse of the formation in outer space and the disappearance of the ice goddess hall in the black hole meant that the ice goddess hall had left. It was extremely likely that the black hole was the tunnel to the higher world. If only the ice goddess hall had left, Jianqin obviously would not have cared. However, his sister was still in the ice goddess hall. Now that the ice goddess hall had left, it would have taken his sister away as well. Sister. Jianqin seemed to have been petrified. He stared at the slowly disappearing black hole in a daze. His heart was filled with sorrow and reluctance. He had never thought that when Changyang Mingyue left the Supreme Divine Hall, it would be the last time the two of them would see each other. Who knew when he would see his sister again in the future? They might never meet again in their entire lives. Chapter 1568. Jianchan was in low spirits, while Yang Lai, Gui Haidao, and Feng Shaotian were overjoyed. Now that the seal had shattered, there was nothing that could stop them from breaking through to the origin realm. Although the origin energy of this world had yet to recover, it was definitely not a problem for the three of them, because they had left behind origin energy in their saint artifacts when they reincarnated. Aside from them, even the holy emperors of the protector clans were unable to use the origin energy within the saint artifacts. If they used the origin energy they had left behind to cultivate, they would be able to reach the origin realm very quickly. Aside from the three of them, many of the holy emperors of the four races were extremely excited as well. The destruction of the seal had allowed all of them to see the path to the origin realm. Even though it was impossible for them to reach the origin realm by absorbing the energy of the world due to the lack of origin energy in this world, at the very least, they had seen some hope of reaching a higher level of cultivation. They would not be stuck at the level of a holy emperor for the rest of their lives until they passed away. In the forbidden grounds of the city, Lord's estate in Flame City, the spacious area was always deathly silent. The hustle and bustle of Flame City were unable to reach here. Even the guards patrolling the city, Lord's estate avoided this place, making it seem like a completely different world from the outside world. There was only a pure white divine hall that stood silently in the quiet backyard. It shone with a faint silver-white light, just like the radiance of the moon. Fairy Haoyu's illusionary figure sat on a jade bed in the bright moon divine hall. The moment the powerful formation in the air shattered, her eyes suddenly snapped open. She raised her head and gazed at the sky. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the obstruction of the bright moon divine hall, allowing her to see everything that was happening outside. She really has left. She left much sooner than I expected. Now that the tunnel to the saints' world has been opened, I can leave as well. Once I reach the saints' world, I'll be able to use a secret technique to recover my body very quickly, Fairy Haoyu murmured to herself. The light in her eyes flickered with eagerness. She had already been trapped here for a very long time. She was extremely eager to return to the saints' world and tell her father about Nan Potion's scheme. Although she thought about that, Fairy Haoyu did not move immediately. She murmured, "In my current state, returning to the saints' world alone will be extremely difficult. Even if I pass through the tunnel, I'll have to pay a huge price. I might even lose the power to protect myself. Once I lose the power to protect myself, I'll probably die before I can even make it back to the Moon God Hall. I've already waited for so many years, so a few more decades won't matter. Jianqin doesn't have much time left in this world, so I'll just wait for him for a few more decades. If he dies to the hands of those people who seem to be spirit sages in a few decades, I'll have to wait for him. Then I'll have to find someone else to work with." Fairy Haoyu did not place much importance on Jianqin's life or death. She had accepted Yu as her disciple out of respect for Jianqin, and she had even assisted Jianqin when he was trapped in the Protector clan's Changyang prefecture. Her ultimate goal was to prevent Jianqin from dying so that she could go to the saints' world through Jianqin in the future. Fairy Haoyu did not place any importance on the Protector clan's Changyang prefecture. As a result, she had helped Jianqin out without any hesitation. It was as easy as lifting a finger for her. However, Fairy Haoyu feared the forsaken saints who might be spirit sages very much. She could not afford to offend them. She did not have a particularly deep friendship with Jianqin. As a matter of fact, they could not even be considered as friends. It was only a cooperative relationship. Outer space gradually calmed down as the tunnel to the saints' world rapidly closed. The Ice Goddess Hall had left through the tunnel. From today onwards, the mysterious organization known as the Ice Goddess Hall no longer existed on the Tianyuan continent. However, just when the tunnel to the saints' world was about to close, two figures suddenly shot out of the death nest. They shot out of the Tianyuan continent like arrows and flew toward the tunnel that was about to close. A gleam of light immediately flashed through Jianqin's eyes when he saw the two figures. He immediately dismissed his thoughts and coldly said, "It's Kaiser and Lankiros from the Beast God continent. It looks like the two of them actually want to go to the saints' world. White Tiger, it's time for your revenge." The White Tiger reverted to his magical beast form. His eyes shone with a vicious light as heavy killing intent radiated from them. With a deafening roar, he vanished with a single leap. When he reappeared, he had crossed an extremely great distance and appeared in outer space, right in front of Kaiser and Lankiros. Compared to the past, Kaiser and the Tiger Emperor seemed to have become much more haggard. They were no longer as dignified as before. When they saw the White Tiger suddenly block their path, their faces changed drastically. Without any hesitation, the two of them immediately split up. They wanted to make their way around the White Tiger and enter the tunnel of the saints' world from the left and right. The White Tiger had reached the origin realm, so Kaiser and Lankiros gave up on resisting. They chose to flee without any hesitation. However, how could the white tiger allow the two of them to enter the tunnel to the saint's world? With a deep, furious roar, the sea on his back gently shuddered. Two strands of force of slaughter immediately shot out, turning into two blades that chased after the two of them. Spurt! Spurt! The heavenly blade, formed from the power of slaughter, mercilessly cut off the heads of the king and the tiger monarch. The two monarchs of the beast race, who had been emperors for many years, were unable to withstand a single blow from the little white tiger. They were as weak as ants. The white tiger imprisoned Kaiser and the tiger emperor's heads and sealed their souls. He brought the heads back to the beast god hall on the beast god continent. His mother, Rum Guinness, was still in the beast god hall. He wanted to execute Kaiser and the tiger emperor in front of his mother. Chapter 1569. No one sympathized with the fate of the two former rulers of the beast god continent, nor did anyone beg for mercy. Even the holy emperor of the Pung clan, Psangcheong, only watched on silently as he sighed inside. The seal has completely vanished. I can't feel the pressure in my soul anymore. We can break through right now. Gue Haidao's eyes were filled with excitement. He had become rather eager. It's a pity that Changyang Mingyue left with the Ice Goddess Hall. Although I haven't known her for a long time, I know that she's not someone who would run away in the face of danger. She definitely didn't leave with the Ice Goddess Hall willingly. She must have been forcefully taken away by Protector Shui. We're missing an expert at the Returnant's realm right now. If the Spirit King attacks the Divine Hall again, it'll be even more difficult for us to maintain the Divine Hall suppression. As a result, we need to break through as soon as possible. However, to prevent us from affecting the Divine Hall, we can only have two people break through at the same time, said Yang Lai. He was also rather eager. If it were not for the powerful sealing formation in this world, the three of them would have broken through to the origin realm long ago. Great-grandfather, the three of you should hurry up and break through. With us here in the Divine Hall, as long as we don't run out of energy, it'll be impossible for the Spirit King to break through the Divine Hall. Jianqin said to the three of them. Jianqin is right. Yang Lai, Gui Haidao, you two go break through right now. We need even more Origin Realm experts to maintain the Divine Hall. I'll remain in the Divine Hall for now. I'll go break through once the two of you reach the Origin Realm, said Feng Xiaotian. Yang Lai and Gui Hai Idao hesitated slightly before leaving. They directly ripped open a space gate and went to an unknown place. They did not choose to enter seclusion in the Divine Hall. Although it was safe there, they would definitely be affected if the Divine Hall was attacked by the world of Forsaken Saints at a crucial moment. As the tunnel to the Saints' world slowly vanished, the space that had collapsed due to the destruction of the formation gradually began to close up. As strands of sunlight reappeared, the darkness that had enveloped the entire world slowly receded as well, allowing the world to clear up once more. Jianqin, Shangguan, Mu-Er, Poseidon, Tianjian, and so on, as well as the Holy Emperor and Holy Emperor who had come to maintain the Divine Hall, all returned to the Divine Hall. All of them were prepared to contribute their strength to the Divine Hall at any time. However, Changyang Mingyue's departure meant that the world had lost a Returnance expert. This made many sainthood experts feel heavy-hearted. Even though Yang Lai, Feng Xiaotian, and Gui Haidao would be able to reach the Origin Realm again soon, it was nowhere near enough to make up for the loss of a Returnance expert. This was because even if the three of them reached the Origin Realm, they would only be at Receival. If they were regular Receival experts, they would not be the opponent of a Returnance expert, even if they worked together. For a moment, a heavy and suffocating atmosphere permeated the entire Divine Hall. Many sainthood experts even began to despair. They believed that they only had a few decades left to live. Once the Divine Hall lost its power to suppress the world, it would be their doomsday. It would also be the doomsday of the world. If it were not for the fact that there were still a few origin realm experts present, some of the less resolute sainthood experts would have already descended into madness from despair and done some outrageous things. After all, various desires would be magnified in despair. Of course, not everyone would be like that, but there were definitely people who were like that. At the same time, there were a few people who suggested escaping from this world and going to the saints' world. After all, the seal was gone now, so the saints' world was no longer as inaccessible as before. However, Feng Xiaoyan's words dispelled everyone's thoughts very soon. It's impossible to pass through the tunnel between the two worlds before you reach the origin realm. The moment you enter the tunnel, you'll be obliterated by the pressure. You'll die a miserable death, far worse than dying at the hands of the world of forsaken saints. Big brother, that powerful big sister has left. What do we do now? Xiaoling looked at Jianqin helplessly in the divine hall. She was filled with fear and unease. She was just an immature girl, so she could sense the heavy atmosphere outside. Even she was slightly affected. Sister Xiaoling, don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just death at worst, said Xiaojin. Xiaojin said. His face was filled with indifference. However, he appeared to be only 3 or 4 years old, and he was not even a meter tall. Yet he was comforting Xiaoling, who was much older than him, which made the scene seem rather comical. Jianqin rubbed Xiaoling's head and smiled. Xiaoling, don't worry. Believe in Big Brother. Big Brother will find a way. Yeah, Xiaoling believes in Big Brother. Xiaoling seemed to have calmed down when she saw how confident Jianqin was. She nodded firmly and became much more determined. However, only Xiaoling believed in consolation like that. Tianjian, Poseidon, Feng Xiaotian, and so on did not take it seriously. They all frowned sternly. Jianqin glanced at Shangguanmu, and gently sighed inside. Originally, Changyang Mingyue was the last hope for this world, but with her departure, the sliver of hope had vanished as well. Now, the last hope of this world rested on him and Shangguanmu. Shangguanmu's face became rather unnatural when she sensed Jianqin's gaze. The light in her eyes flickered a few times, and she seemed to make up her mind in the end. She said to Jianqin secretly, I agree to your suggestion. Shangguanmu understood the current situation as well. If it were before, she might have placed her hopes on Changyang Mingyue, but she understood now that the lives of her father and Shangguan Aojin were in her hands. Jianqin immediately let out a sigh of relief inside when he heard that. He also replied, All right, once my great-grandfather and the others reach the origin realm, we'll immediately set off for Dragon Island. Shangguanmu, and Jianqin communicated through communication, so no one else knew that they had come to an agreement aside from the two of them. The three of them had once been origin realm experts, so they had experienced a breakthrough before. As a result, the breakthrough this time was extremely easy for them. In just 2 short days, the three of them all reached the origin realm, but they were only at early receival. If they wanted to recover their past strength, they would need to absorb origin energy and slowly cultivate. Now that there were 3 true origin realm experts in the Divine Hall, Jianqin and Shangguanmu were finally able to leave without any worries. Very soon, the news of their departure spread. Everyone heard that the two of them had gone to find a way to completely deal with the threat from the world of forsaken saints. When they returned in a few years, or even a few decades, the world of forsaken saints would no longer be able to shake up the Tianyuan continent. Chapter 1570. Jianqin and Shangguanmu. A return to Dragon Island. In ancient times, the Yinyang Saint Rock had fallen on Dragon Island from outer space before being moved to the depths of the endless universe by Mo Tianyin. It was extremely far away, such that even with Jianqin's current strength, he was unable to sense the rock. If he directly flew over from the Tianyuan continent, he probably would not be able to cover the distance even after several decades or over a century. As a result, The only path to where the Inyang Saint Rock was the formation that Mo Tianyin had cast down on Dragon Island. The formation possessed the power of teleportation, so it was the only shortcut to where the Inyang Saint Rock was. Jianqin and Shangguan Mu sighed in amazement when they returned to Dragon Island and looked at the scenery that had remained the same for several decades. When they had first arrived on Dragon Island, they had to be careful to avoid the mindless walking corpses that roamed the island, or they would die if they were careless. Now that they had returned, the wandering corpses no longer posed any threat to them. Even the powerful dragon souls that roamed the depths of Dragon Island were as weak as insects in their eyes. There are many heavenly resources growing on Dragon Island, and they're all shockingly old. It's just a pity that these heavenly resources aren't of very high quality, so they're useless to us. Let's directly go to the Lunisolar Cave and get to the Inyang Saint Rock as soon as possible, Jianqin said to Shangguan Mu. Shangguan Mu. I had already removed her veil, revealing her indescribably beautiful face. She followed beside Jianqin emotionlessly as she continued to hold the simple zither of the demonic cry. She nodded silently when she heard Jianqin's words. A sliver of mixed feelings appeared in her eyes. Just when Jianqin was about to set off for the Lunisolar Cave, his face suddenly changed. He gently let out an interjection of surprise and immediately changed directions. Originally, he had been heading for the Lunisolar Cave, but now he was directly charging towards the depths of Dragon Island. A sliver of interest appeared in Shangguan Mu's eyes as well. She followed behind Jianqin, flying towards the depths of Dragon Island. There was a 10-meter tall formation on Dragon Island. Even Saint Emperors would feel pressured by such a powerful formation. At the same time, there was a terrifying killing formation hidden within as well. As soon as anyone who did not belong to the Dragon Clan came into contact with the 10-meter tall formation, the space there would immediately crack open and devour them like the mouth of a demon. However, a formation like this was nothing to Origin Realm experts. Jianqin and Shangguan Mu directly ignored the 10-meter tall formation. They flew towards the center of Dragon Island with lightning speed. As they moved, the space there shook violently, forming spatial cracks one after another. Dragon Island was very large, but with Jianqin and Shangguan Mu's speed, they crossed half of the island in just a short while. They arrived at the center of the island. A golden door that was 3 times the size of a sheet appeared in the air there. Illusionary dragon souls would fly out from it from time to time, wandering about the depths of the island. Jianqin was familiar with this place. This was the most sacred place of the Dragon Clan, a tomb established in a miniature world. Jianqin and Shangguan Mu both concealed their presences as they stood outside the entrance of the tomb. They did not enter. The tomb was the most sacred place of the Dragon Clan. All the dead dragons of the Dragon Clan were buried there. If outsiders set foot in there, it would be blasphemy to the Dragon Clan. Illusionary dragons roamed around the tomb. But even when Jianqin and Shangguan Mu stood outside the entrance, the wandering dragon souls failed to sense their existence at all. Even when some of the dragon souls passed by them, they did not sense them at all. It was as if Jianqin and Shangguan Mu did not exist in their eyes. Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian are actually cultivating here, Jianqin murmured. Ever since they parted ways in the Ice Goddess Hall, he had not seen Ruijin, Shangguan Mu and Shangguan Mu again. Even when he had enveloped the territories of the 4 races with the senses of his soul, he had failed to sense their presences. Today he had unexpectedly discovered their traces on Dragon Island. After so many years, many people on the Tianyuan continent have become Holy Emperor. Even the Holy Emperors who are weaker than the 3 of them have broken through to Holy Emperor. Yet the 3 of them are still stuck at the great perfection of Holy Emperor, Shangguan Mu said softly. She glanced at Jianqin beside her with some blame in her eyes. She was glancing at Jianqin. There were many people on the Tianyuan continent who did not know Jianqin. Yet Jianqin had generously given them violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves to become Holy Emperor. Ruijin, Shangguan Mu, and Shangguan Mu had assisted Jianqin countless times in the past. They had even been Jianqin's greatest backer against the 10 protector clans in the past. Yet now, the 3 of them were still stuck at the great perfection of Holy Emperor. They had not become emperors, so Shangguan Mu found it rather difficult to continue watching. Sigh. I should have thought that seniors Ruijin and the other 2 should be cultivating here. I should have come here long ago, but I've been delayed by the matters of the world of Forsaken Saints, so I've never been able to free myself. Jianqin felt extremely regretful when he sensed that the 3 of them were still stuck at the great perfection of Forsaken Saints. The kindness that Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish had shown him was as heavy as a mountain. He would never be able to repay them. On the Tianyuan continent, many holy emperors who were not as powerful as Ruijin, Shangguan Mu and Shangguan Mu had broken through many years ago. Yet Ruijin, Shangguan Mu and Shangguan Mu were still working hard to become holy emperor. Jianqin's heart ached when he saw this. Not breaking through ahead of time might be a good thing for the 3 seniors. At the very least, they didn't take part in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. Although they possess armor with origin energy, they still can't defeat origin realm experts, said Shangguan Mu. The fact that Ruijin, Shangguan Mu and Shangguan Mu had remained in seclusion for many years. If they had broken through ahead of time and taken part in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, they would not have been the opponents of Receival or Returnance experts, even with their origin energy armor. That's not right. Ruijin, Shangguan Mu and Shangguan Mu are still stuck at the great perfection of Holy Emperor, but their presences are no weaker than Holy Emperors. They're even more powerful than regular Holy Emperors. Jianqin's eyes narrowed as he stared at the depths of the tomb. Although he was unable to see Ruijin, Shangguan Mu and Shangguan Mu due to the countless tombstones, he could clearly sense their presences. They're practicing an even higher level cultivation method. This cultivation method has completely surpassed the Saint Tier. Jianqin was greatly shocked. Saint Tier cultivation methods and battle skills were already at the highest level in this world. If they surpassed this level, they would no longer belong to this world. They would definitely have been passed down from a higher world. Could it be that the winged tiger god from ancient times has reappeared? Aside from the winged tiger, who would help Ruijin and Shangguan Mu, are like this. And the armor and weapons of seniors Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish all came from the winged tiger from the ancient times. When Ruijin and Shangguan Mu were trapped in the Ice Goddess Hall, Protector Shui said that the 3 of them had already been saved. Is the mysterious expert who saved Ruijin and Shangguan Mu the winged tiger? When he saved them, did he pass down an even more profound cultivation method to them? Jianqin frowned and thought. However, no matter what conclusion he reached, it was only a guess. He had no concrete evidence to prove it. Ruijin, Shangguan Mu and Shangguan Mu had already reached a crucial moment in their cultivation. They would become holy emperors soon. Due to their cultivation methods, they would be more powerful than regular holy emperors as soon as they reached the level of holy emperor. As a result, Jianqin did not disturb Ruijin and Shangguan Mu. Instead, he stood outside the tomb and took out 3 space rings. Each space ring contained 3 5th-grade violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves. He also left behind enough springs of life. Afterwards, he wrote down the method to consume them on a stone tablet. After doing all that, he controlled the 3 space rings to slowly drift into the tomb, silently landing with the 3 of them cultivated. Chapter 1571. After leaving behind the space rings, Jianqin and Shangguan Mu left the dragon's tomb, directly making their way to the Lunisolar Cave. The Lunisolar Cave was an extremely deep hole on Dragon Island. It had been formed when the Inyang Saint Rock had flown in from outer space and smashed into Dragon Island. It was also because of the Inyang Saint Rock that Dragon Island began to change producing many walking corpses. Afterwards, the dragons, phoenixes, and the winged tiger all vanished from this world. Jianqin and Shangguanmu arrived in the lunisolar cave. There was still quite a lot of stardust there. It was one of the materials for forging the azulite swords. It was one of the best materials on the Tianyuan continent, but it was basically worthless in the Saints' world. At the bottom of the lunisolar cave was a formation that Mo Tianyin had cast down in the past. The formation directly led to where the Yinyang Saint Rock was. Fortunately, the sword spirits knew about the formation. Afterwards, Jianqin and Shangguanmu entered the formation using the method the sword spirits told them. They entered according to a specific pattern and direction. After taking the 8th step, their surroundings suddenly changed. They had left the lunisolar cave and appeared in a dark, cold region of outer space. Stars flickered as far as the eye could see, while the planet where the Tianyuan continent resided had already been hidden among the stars. It was impossible to find it. With that step, Jianqin and Shangguanmu crossed an unimaginable distance. They appeared in outer space that was extremely distant from the Tianyuan continent. Although Jianqin and Shangguanmu had already experienced something like this before, the shock they experienced this time was much greater than the first time. When they first experienced this, they were only saint rulers. Both their knowledge and experience were limited. At that time, they believed that as long as they surpassed the Holy Emperor, they would be able to cast down a formation that could traverse endless distances. They could even use their own strength to move through outer space as they wished. However, only now that they had become Origin Realm experts did they understand just how heaven-defying Mo Tianyun's formation was. With their strength, they could indeed travel through outer space as they wished, but the distance they could travel was extremely limited. It might have been easy for them to travel to the moon, which was not too far away from the Tianyuan continent, but if they wanted to travel such a great distance, just the vast sea of stars would be enough to make them lose their sense of direction. Even now, they would not be able to find their way home without the assistance of the formation below them as they stood in outer space. Follow my footsteps closely. Don't take a single wrong step. If you step outside the spatial node, you will be lost in the void. Jianqin held Shangguanmu, Uri's hand tightly as he said, sternly through a communication technique. At this moment, even he dared not to be careless. He completely obeyed the sword spirits. Shangguanmu nodded slightly. She understood this extremely well, so she stood by Jianqin's side obediently. She did not dare to take a single step recklessly. Under the assistance of the sword spirits, Jianqin and Shangguanmu walked through space step by step. Every step they took just happened to land on a spatial node, and the vast sea of stars around them would change with each step. This was because they had crossed too great a distance. However, this did not last for very long. When they took their 30th step, their surroundings suddenly changed. At a closer glance, the two of them had appeared in a spatial tunnel that was 10 meters wide. The surroundings of the tunnel were chaotic, so they could not see anything clearly. Everything was the same as when they had first come here. Afterwards, Jianqin and Shangguanmu stepped into the tunnel and successfully arrived where the Yinyang Saint Rock was. It was a hazy space, devoid of any life at all. The entire world was deathly silent. Originally, this was an empty space. When Mo Tianyin had moved the Yinyang Saint Rock here, the yin and yang qi that leaked out from the rock from time to time formed the laws of the world. It created everything in the world, gradually forming this lifeless world. Jianqin finally let out a sigh of relief after successfully entering the world of the Yinyang Saint Rock. Afterwards, he arrived where the Yinyang Saint Rock was with great familiarity with Shangguanmu. The Yinyang Saint Rock was placed in an extremely large conical pit. The rock floated at the very bottom of the pit. When Jianqin saw the Yinyang Saint Rock again, it shone with intense black and white light, completely obscuring its body. However, Jianqin could still see the rock clearly. The Yinyang Saint Rock was not large. It was only the size of a fist. One was black and one was white, but the terrifying energy within the rock was enough to make Jianchen shiver. If this energy erupted, the entire universe would probably be destroyed. At the same time, Jianchen could clearly see specks of red light flickering within the two rocks. They seemed to be alive as they pulsed slowly. Jianchen had no idea what the red light was, but the moment he saw it, all his hair stood on end. He felt a chill run down his spine uncontrollably as his heart began to thump violently. He was not the only one. Even Shangguan Er's face changed drastically. She stared at the Yinyang Saint Rock. Clearly, the red light gave her the same feeling as Jianchen. Is this the evil power hidden within the Yinyang Saint Rock? Jianchen's eyes shone brightly. He also stared at the red light within the Yinyang Saint Rock. He was greatly shocked. Just a single glance had given him such an intense feeling. The terror of the evil power had completely exceeded Jianchen's imagination. What an evil power! Once this power breaks free, it'll lead to a devastating disaster. Looks like this is the crux of the crisis of the world. No one can stop it. The primordial god silk is the thing that can stop the crisis. The sword spirits appeared as well. They stared at the Yinyang Saint Rock sternly. Suddenly their faces changed. They cried out, "Oh no, the evil power is actually absorbing the yin and yang qi within the Yinyang Saint Rock. This will only make it stronger. We have to stop it, or even the primordial god silk won't be able to stop it once it reaches a certain level of strength." But the evil power is hidden within the Yinyang Saint Rock, and the rock can't be touched. If the balance between the yin and yang is lost, we'll face the crisis from the rock before the evil power matures, Jianchen said with a frown. He was extremely stern. Chapter 1572. When Jianchen and Shangguan entered the space within the Yinyang Saint Rock with the hopes of the four races, the main culprit who had caused them to fall into despair, the Spirit King, currently stood at the top of the World Mountains. He faced the constantly twisting tunnel before him. The Spirit King possessed an extremely ordinary face. His long, black hair casually draped over his shoulders. Both his appearance and attire were extremely ordinary. He had never intentionally dressed himself up. He was the type of person who would not attract any attention if he was thrown into a crowd. Perhaps the only thing that gave people an impression about the Spirit King was the extraordinary determination on his ordinary face. However, beneath his ordinary appearance hid supreme strength and terrifying prestige that made all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints tremble. Even Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen, who were late returnance experts, did not dare to disobey him. The Spirit King stood with his hands behind his back as he stared at the tunnel before him emotionlessly. Strands of light would flicker through his deep, dark eyes from time to time. His gaze would be ordinary at times and sharp at other times. When it became sharp, it would seem like a sword with a threatening presence. Even reciprocity experts like the Spirit King would feel extremely shocked when they saw it. A dark, metal sword hovered beside the Spirit King. The metal sword was forged from an unknown material, so it seemed extremely ordinary under its dark exterior. It did not catch anyone's attention at all. Compared to the shining, treasured swords, it seemed like a dazzling sun. However, the metal sword hovered in the air by itself without any support. Its tip was pointed downwards, while its hilt was pointed upwards behind the Spirit King. Ouyang Yangwen and the other protectors and elders all held their breaths behind the Spirit King. They stood there quietly, not even daring to breathe too loudly. Whether it was the Receival protectors or the Returnance elders, they all seemed to have lost their dignity as Origin Realm experts at that moment. They were like completely different people compared to how they were on the Tianyuan continent. A few of the protectors and elders had already disappeared. They had all died on the Tianyuan continent. Many of them were pale and haggard, as if they were ill. Even their robes were stained with blood. Clearly, some of them had yet to recover from their injuries on the Tianyuan continent. I never thought that the Tianyuan continent would possess such a powerful divine hall. This divine hall is indeed a supreme treasure, no weaker than the 3 supreme treasures of our world of forsaken saints. Even I can't damage it at all. The Tianyuan continent really isn't simple. We've actually misjudged their strength time and time again. They've actually managed to produce so many receival and returnance experts in an environment without origin energy. How unexpected, the Spirit King said slowly. His voice was deep and heavy, without any emotions at all. Ouyang Yongwen, Xiong Zhong, and the other elders all stood there silently. They did not even dare to breathe too loudly. They had a certain understanding of the Spirit King, so they knew that he was truly infuriated, even though he seemed calm right now. This was because they had lost a returnance expert this time. Aside from the returnance elders, there were even a few receival protectors who had died in the battle. The world of forsaken saints had suffered extremely heavy losses in their invasion of the Tianyuan continent this time. Although they still had 7 elders and over 20 protectors, the losses this time had left the world of forsaken saints shaken to the core. Is Jianqin of the Tianyuan continent really that powerful? Even you two mid-returnance elders aren't his opponent? The Spirit King asked again. His voice was just as heavy as before as he stared at the tunnel before him. In the past, he had used the cloud stream sword to pass through the tunnel and clashed once outside the Tianyuan continent. Although Jianqin had also comprehended the way of the sword, he was nowhere near as powerful as he was back then. It had been a decade or 2 since then, and a few people with unprecedented talent could make major breakthroughs. But the Tianyuan continent did not possess origin energy. No matter how talented they were, it was impossible for them to reach the origin realm in such an environment, let alone make major breakthroughs. Spirit King, Jianqin is indeed extremely powerful. Even when Elder Bai and I work together, we can't kill him when he's heavily injured. We can only barely keep him suppressed, and his recovery is extremely shocking as well. No matter how heavily injured he is, he can make a full recovery in an extremely short amount of time. A senile old man stood forward and said. A gleam of light flickered through Ouyang Yongwen's eyes. After a moment of hesitation, he said with mixed feelings, Spirit King, there's another piece of news. I don't know if I should say it or not. Ouyang Yongwen was extremely uneasy as he said that. He did not know how the Spirit King would react once he heard the news. Speak. The Spirit King's tone remained the same. Ouyang Yongwen sucked in a deep breath and slowly said, Jianqin's strength may have surpassed mid-returnance experts, where even some late returnance experts are not his opponent, but his true strength is not even at the origin realm. Jianqin is actually the Holy Emperor. The expressions of many protectors and elders immediately changed when they heard Ouyang Yongwen's words. Disbelief filled their faces. How is that possible? There's an uncrossable gap between sainthood and the origin realm. It's not an exaggeration to describe it as the difference between heaven and earth. Although Jianqin has comprehended the way of the sword and can surpass this gap, it's impossible for him to be so heaven-defying as to be able to fight returnance experts with the strength of the Holy Emperor and reach late returnance. He's only a step away from reciprocity. A protector immediately cried out. He had completely forgotten that the Spirit King was present. Jianqin had comprehended the way of the sword, which was the power of laws. No one was particularly surprised that he could fight receival experts with the strength of the Holy Emperor. But many people struggled to accept that he could erupt with battle prowess on par with late returnance experts with the strength of the Holy Emperor. This was because even the Spirit King probably did not possess such battle prowess in the past. Ouyang Yongwen nervously stared at the Spirit King. He might have been insufferably arrogant on the Tianyuan continent, acting like he was the greatest in the world. But before the Spirit King, he trembled in fear. To Ouyang Yongwen's surprise, the Spirit King remained very calm after hearing the news. It was as if the news that everyone found unbelievable could not affect the Spirit King at all. Jianqin. The Spirit King softly murmured. Ever since he had clashed with Gentian, the name had been deeply engraved in his heart, causing him to say it more than once. It was also at this moment that the Spirit King's gaze became extremely deep. He stared deeply at the distorted tunnel before him and sank into a long period of silence. The protectors and elders from the world of forsaken saints all stood there silently. None of them dared to disturb the Spirit King as he sank into his thoughts. After quite a while, the Spirit King finally turned around slowly and made his way down the world mountains. He said, "I'm going into seclusion immediately to attempt to break through to the origin realm. During this time, no one is allowed to disturb me unless there's something extremely important. The daily matters of the Sacred Spirit Hall will be handled by you 7 elders. Ouyang Yongwen, you've been stuck at late returnants for many years. Break through to reciprocity as soon as possible. Once I emerge, I'll charge out with the spirit sages." The protectors and elders were immediately shocked when they heard what the Spirit King had said. The Spirit King was actually going to break through to the origin realm. Would that not mean he was going to reach the legendary realm of godhood? Chapter 1573. Quite a few of the origin realm experts remained in confusion after the Spirit King's departure. That's strange. Why has the great Spirit King suddenly announced that he is going into seclusion at a time like this? Although the entrance to the Tianyuan continent has been blocked by a powerful divine hall, the people of the Tianyuan continent won't be able to last for very long. If the Spirit King constantly attacks the divine hall with his battle prowess at godhood, he should be able to deplete its power very quickly. Without the assistance of a divine hall, it's impossible for the people of the Tianyuan continent to stop all of our protectors and elders. An origin realm protector asked in confusion. He stared in the direction that the Spirit King had disappeared in as undisguised admiration appeared on his face. The Spirit King obviously has his reasons for not doing that. At the same time, we all saw how the Spirit King attacked the Divine Hall. In the beginning, the Spirit King was still able to shake the Divine Hall, but afterwards, the Divine Hall gradually stabilized. It remained unmoved even after taking on the Spirit King's full-powered attacks. So we can conclude that the Divine Hall's power has definitely increased by a lot. It won't be easy for the Spirit King to deplete the Divine Hall's power with his strength. If the people of the Tianyuan continent possessed heavenly resources that could recover, the Divine Hall would take a lot longer. It might even be able to extend the Divine Hall to several hundred years. After all, that world is just far too abnormal. It's impossible for there to be so many origin realm experts in an environment without origin energy. That world is not as simple as we imagine it to be. Instead of wasting so much time pointlessly attacking the Divine Hall, why not use that time on cultivation? If the Spirit King spends that time on cultivation, he might be able to reach the legendary level of godhood with his unprecedented talent. At that time, it'll be a piece of cake for the Spirit King to break through the Divine Hall, said another protector. Whenever he mentioned the Spirit King, his voice would be filled with respect. And there's one more thing. If the people of the Tianyuan continent flee into outer space with the Divine Hall or the Saint's World, we won't be able to obtain the Divine Hall. If the Spirit King reaches godhood, the people of the Tianyuan continent won't be able to escape from the Spirit King, even if they try to flee with the Divine Hall. Even if they hide in the depths of outer space, the Spirit King will be able to find them. It's said that as long as you reach godhood, you can move through outer space. You won't even get lost in the depths of outer space. Many protectors and elders present agreed with what the protector had said. Godhood had never appeared in the world of forsaken saints, and the Spirit King was only at mid-reciprocity. Logically speaking, it should have been impossible for him to reach godhood in such a short amount of time. However, the current Spirit King possessed unprecedented talent. Not only had he reached his current level of cultivation in just over 800 years, becoming the only king of the world of forsaken saints, but he had also comprehended laws, shattering the legend that no one in the world of forsaken saints could comprehend laws. What others could not do was not necessarily impossible for the Spirit King. All the protectors and elders present were extremely certain that if the Spirit King focused on seclusion, he would be able to reach godhood in just a short amount of time. Ouyang Yongwen walked out and glanced at the protectors with a slightly sunken face. He coldly said, "Don't question the Spirit King's decisions. Every decision he makes is correct. I will also enter seclusion immediately and reach reciprocity as soon as possible. During my seclusion, enter the tunnel and constantly attack the Divine Hall. Even if you can't destroy it, you'll still exhaust its power. We can't let the people of that world have it so easy. The protectors and elders of our world can't die for nothing." "Yes, Grand Elder," the Receival protectors all replied. In the world of forsaken saints where strength was everything, Ouyang Yongwen held the greatest authority aside from the Spirit King. The protectors who were only at Receival did not dare to disobey Ouyang Yongwen's orders. Although the other returnants elders were not as powerful as Ouyang Yongwen, they did not fear Ouyang Yongwen since they were all elders and had reached returnants. Ouyang Yongwen had no right to order them around. Ouyang Yongwen glanced at the injured Xiongzhong, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. He left with a huff of his sleeve. Xiongzhong had always been his mortal enemy, and the elders were split into two factions. One of them was led by Jianqin, while the other was led by Xiongzhong. The returnant's elder who had been slain by Jianqin on the Tianyuan continent belonged to Ouyang Yongwen's faction. Ouyang Yongwen is actually about to break through. I'm already slightly weaker than him, so if he breaks through while I'm still at late returnants, I won't be his opponent at all. I need to enter seclusion immediately and break through as soon as possible, thought Xiongzhong. Xiongzhong thought. Afterwards, he left as well and entered seclusion with Ouyang Yongwen. In the blink of an eye, 3 years passed. During those 3 years, the Spirit King, Ouyang Yongwen, and Xiongzhong all entered deep seclusion. However, there would be Receival protectors stationed at the top of the world mountains from time to time. Elders would also come to investigate the situation from time to time. In the past 3 years, the protectors from the world of forsaken saints were split into groups of 5. They worked with a few elders to constantly attack the Divine Hall on the Tianyuan continent. Not only did their attacks fail to collapse the tunnel, but they even made it more stable with the passage of time. Now, the tunnel could easily endure the shockwaves from battles between returnants experts. Even reciprocity experts could enter. Some changes had occurred on the Tianyuan continent in the past 3 years. The changes were mainly due to the 4 huge cracks that split the continent into 4. Each crack was several dozen kilometers wide and bottomless. Now, the 4 cracks had become 4 turbulent rivers, causing quite a lot of obstacles for many Heaven Saint Masters to cross the continent. Shipping and air transport had come into being with the appearance of the 4 wide rivers in the past 3 years, becoming the necessary means of transportation for many low-level cultivators to cross the continent. Now, huge sailboats could be seen everywhere on the 4 wide rivers. In the air, there were also many flying demonic beasts flying at an extremely fast speed. On the back of each flying demonic beast, there were several or even dozens of cultivators. Most of these flying demonic beasts were raised by some forces and placed on both sides of the river as expensive transportation. They were expensive and not something that ordinary cultivators could ride. The Supreme Divine Hall of Mercenary City still stood at the entrance of the tunnel. This place used to be the ruins of Mercenary City, and it was also the center of the battle. As a result, the location of the Supreme Divine Hall was also the intersection of the 4 rivers. However, a powerful pulse of energy and a terrifying pressure permeated the surrounding 100 kilometers of the tunnel. It pushed away the water in the surroundings, turning the area into a vacuum. The surrounding 1,000 kilometers had become a forbidden zone, where only sainthood experts could enter. Chapter 1574. The Supreme Divine Hall above the tunnel had already been split into 2 regions, the inner region and the outer region. The inner region was the core of the Divine Hall. Only Tianjian and the Origin Realm experts of the four races could enter there. The outer region was where all the sainthood experts resided. Whether it was saint rulers, holy emperors, or holy emperors, they all gathered in the outer region of the Divine Hall. They poured their energy into the Divine Hall without holding back, maintaining the Divine Hall suppression of the tunnel with the Origin Realm experts in the inner region. During the 3 years of suppression, the sainthood experts of the four races were split into 4 shifts. Each shift belonged to a different race, and the sainthood experts of each race had to remain in the Divine Hall for 10 days. During those 10 days, they would pour 90% of their saint force into the Divine Hall. When the shift was changed 10 days later, they would have a month to recover their saint force. The cycle continued. 3 years later, the number of sainthood experts of the four races had increased by a lot compared to when the war had just ended. Although the number of holy emperors had not increased, the number of holy emperors and saint rulers had increased by quite a lot. In particular, the number of saint rulers had increased by over 100 in just 3 years. With the four races combined, the number of saint rulers had reached 500. This change made many experts of the four races realize that breaking through seemed to be much easier than 3 years ago. However, the advantage of breaking through was mainly from Heaven's Saint Master to Saint Ruler. There was no obvious advantage to breaking through to a higher level of cultivation. As for the Holy Emperor, breaking through to Holy Emperor was still as difficult as before. As a result, the number of Holy Emperors of the four races did not change at all in the past 3 years. At this moment, the rather dignified Tianjian sat on a white jade seat in the core region of the Divine Hall. He channeled the powerful energy that everyone had poured into the Divine Hall into the formation through the white jade seat, maintaining the Divine Hall's suppression of the tunnel. Yang Lai, Guihai Yidao, Feng Xiaotian, Poseidon, Houston, Xiaojin, Xiaoling, and the Winged Tiger were all gathered around Tianjian. Aside from Tai Ta, all the Origin Realm experts in the world were present. During the past 3 years, the sainthood experts had been replaced every 10 days. However, the Origin Realm experts who stood at the apex of the world did not enjoy such treatment at all. None of them had left the Divine Hall in the past 3 years. Even when they ran out of origin energy, they had to consume the mortal energy fruit left behind by Jianqin to recover. This was because they needed to prevent the Spirit King from attacking the Divine Hall. Now that the Divine Hall was missing Tai Ta, Jianqin, and Shangguanmu, if the Spirit King suddenly attacked the Divine Hall, they would need everyone's full strength and all the sainthood experts to barely stop him. As a result, none of the Origin Realm experts could leave while the Divine Hall was suppressing the tunnel. Otherwise, it was extremely likely for the Divine Hall to be torn apart by the Spirit King. The world of Forsaken Saints was so powerful that even if Tai Ta, Jianqin, Shangguanmu and Changyang Mingyue were present, they would not be their opponent. Not to mention that Changyang Mingyue had gone to the Saints' world while Jianqin and Shangguanmu had left the Tianyuan continent. No one knew where they had gone. Under such circumstances, what awaited them would be a hellish disaster if they lost the front line. They could not afford to be careless. In the past 3 years, the world of Forsaken Saints has never stopped attacking the Divine Hall. Although the attacks have weakened, they're still exhausting the Divine Hall's power. If they continue like this, I think we'll only be able to last 100 years at most. I believe that the attacks from the world of Forsaken Saints will gradually become stronger before long. At that time, we'll be able to last even less time. Poseidon frowned and said sternly, maintaining the Divine Hall consumed the Divine Hall's power. Coupled with the constant attacks from the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints, the Divine Hall's power was being depleted at an even faster rate. We should rejoice that the Spirit King has not continued to attack the Divine Hall. When the Spirit King struck out 3 years ago, all of us, including Tai Ta, Jianqin, and Shangguanmu, barely managed to keep the Divine Hall stable. Now that the 3 of them are gone, it'll be extremely difficult for us to stop the Spirit King's attacks. If the Spirit King constantly attacks the Divine Hall, I think we'll only be able to last for 10 years or even less, said Yonglai. Deep fear appeared in his eyes when he mentioned the Spirit King. The Spirit King's strength had completely exceeded the three of them when they were at their peak. After all, they were only at the origin realm when they roamed the Saints' world, while the Spirit King's battle prowess was equivalent to godhood. Tai Ta has gone to where a Rui Jin is sealed. Once he returns, his strength will definitely increase. At the same time, all of us can sense that the world has changed slightly. We don't know what it is exactly. Although there's no origin energy, it's clearly much easier for saint rulers to break through compared to 3 years ago, and the changes are still ongoing. I believe that in a few years it'll be much easier for saint rulers to break through to Holy Emperor. It might even be able to affect the Holy Emperor's breakthrough, Feng Xiaotian said with a smile. The changes in the world were basically good news to them because the 4 races would become more and more powerful as their breakthroughs became easier and easier. Xiao Ling tilted her head and thought for a while. She said crisply, "Do you think the changes in the world have something to do with Big Brother?" "That shouldn't be possible." Feng Xiaotian shook his head. He was a disciple of a large sect in the Saints' world. Even though he was only an ordinary disciple, he still had quite the insight. In his opinion, even godhood experts would not be able to affect the changes in the world, let alone Jianqin, who was still some distance away from godhood. Today just happened to be the day when the human sainthood experts would change shifts in the Divine Hall after 10 days. The sainthood experts of the sea race would replace them. In less than 10 minutes, the humans and the sea race had finished changing shifts. They all walked out of the Divine Hall in exhaustion. Some of the human sainthood experts chose to remain in the Divine Hall to recover their saint force, while others chose to leave. Without any exception, all of them became leaders of organizations on the Tianyuan continent. Among the people who left, there was a dignified, middle-aged man in embroidered robes. In the past 10 days, he had channeled 90% of his saint force into the Divine Hall, so he was currently filled with exhaustion. As he walked out of the Divine Hall, many human sainthood experts, regardless of whether they were holy emperors or holy emperors, all greeted the middle-aged man with a smile. There were even a few holy emperors who came up to talk with him. Even though the middle-aged man was only at the second heavenly layer of the holy emperor, he seemed extremely composed before experts who were far more powerful than him. Even when he faced a holy emperor, he was neither haughty nor servile. On the other hand, the holy emperors were all extremely polite to the middle-aged man who had only recently become a holy emperor. They greeted him with a smile as if they were an esteemed guest. This did not only happen to the human sainthood experts. Even the sainthood experts of the sea race who had come to replace them treated the middle-aged man the same way. All of them were extremely polite. Whether it was the peak holy emperor of the sea race or the holy emperor of the sea race, no one dared to provoke the middle-aged man who had only recently become a holy emperor. As a result, the middle-aged man stood out among the group of sainthood experts. The middle-aged man was Jianqin's father, Changyangba. As the father of the greatest human expert, even though Changyangba's personal strength was not worth mentioning in front of many people, he still possessed an extraordinary status. Changyangba basically walked out of the Divine Hall under the encirclement of the Holy Emperor and the Holy Emperor. Afterward, he clasped his hands and bid farewell to everyone. As the human sainthood experts all left, only Changyangba and a few other people remained. However, there were still 5 people in red robes standing silently behind Changyangba. Their red robes were embroidered with a flame-shaped insignia. Whether it was the Tianyuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Sea Realm, or the Wasteland continent, they were all familiar with this insignia because it was the insignia of the Flame Mercenaries. The 5 middle-aged men were not weak at all. They had all reached the level of Holy Emperor and were above the 5th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. They were far more powerful than Changyangba. However, they had used up 90% of their saint force in the Divine Hall, so the 5 of them were rather pale. However, The 5 holy emperors stood behind Changyangba, like guards. They were emotionless and showed no intentions of leaving first. It was as if the 5 of them would not leave until Changyangba left. Changyangba hovered in the air as he looked at the shattered Tianyuan continent below him. He gently sighed and said, "Let's go back." With Changyangba's words, one of the 5 people behind him immediately stepped forward. He ripped open space with the Holy Emperor's ability and quickly created a space gate. Only after Changyangba stepped through the space gate did the 5 of them enter one after another. The 5 Holy Emperor were the divine guards of the Flame Mercenaries. They were the people who had joined the Flame Mercenaries in Wake City of the Blue Wind Kingdom. Originally, it was impossible for them to even reach Earth Saint Master with their talent, but their loyalty to the Flame Mercenaries and Jianqin made Jianqin decide to nurture them. Afterwards, Jianqin used several decades and a large amount of effort and heavenly resources to nurture them without holding back. In the end, they became experts on the Tianyuan continent and were given the title of Divine Guards of the Flame. There were originally 50 to 60 Divine Guards of the Flame, and all of them were Holy Emperor. They were the greatest foundation of the Flame Mercenaries, as well as the protectors of the Flame Mercenaries. However, they had suffered heavy losses in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. In the end, only 20 of them survived. Under the orders of Bai Lian, 5 of them were stationed in Changyang Prefecture. One reason was to protect Changyang Prefecture, and the other was to strengthen the dignity of Changyang Prefecture. Chapter 1575. Due to a slip of the pen in the previous chapter, I had written Changyangba's strength as a saint ruler instead of a holy emperor. It has been corrected now. Changyangba was the prefecture lord of Changyang Prefecture, and because of his 4th son, he was extremely renowned on the Tianyuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Sea Realm, and the Wasteland continent. However, the authority that Changyangba possessed was pitifully weak compared to his current status. This was because the people he could mobilize were the earliest people from Changyang Prefecture in Lore City, as well as a few Heaven Saint Masters and Saint Rulers who had joined Changyang Prefecture because of Jinshin's fame. However, the Holy Emperor who had joined Changyang Prefecture had joined Changyang Prefecture because of their admiration for Jinshin. They were willing to follow Jinshin's orders, but they respected Changyangba most of the time. As for the Saint Rulers and Holy Emperor from the Zhu branch, who lived in seclusion in the forbidden grounds of Changyang Prefecture, all of them possessed frightening seniority. Any one of them was Changyangba's great-grandfather in terms of seniority. Whenever Changyangba saw them, he had to greet them as a senior. This power was not something that Changyangba could wield. As a result, Changyangba had to possess a great reputation. As the prefecture lord of Changyang Prefecture, who was renowned across the continent, the sainthood power that he could control was pitifully weak. It did not match his great status at all. Bai Lian had considered this, which was why the 5 divine guards of flames were stationed in Changyang Prefecture. At the same time, they would listen to Changyangba, the prefecture lord of Changyang Prefecture. They had become a force that could be controlled by the prefecture lord of Changyang Prefecture. At the same time, they would be able to control the situation. Changyangba returned to the Changyang clan in Lore City under the protection of the 5 divine guards of the flame. He immediately entered seclusion to recover his saint force. The 5 divine guards of flames were only guards in name, but they were all experts of the Holy Emperor. As a result, their statuses in Changyang Prefecture were extremely great. Even the direct descendants of Changyang Prefecture treated them with respect. The 5 of them each had their own independent courtyard in Changyang Prefecture. They were located in the center, north, south, east, and west respectively. They guarded the surroundings of Changyang Prefecture, vaguely becoming the protectors of Changyang Prefecture. When the prefecture lord of Changyang Prefecture went out, the 5 divine guards followed him closely. The rest of the time, the 5 divine guards cultivated in seclusion in Changyang Prefecture. They would only appear when the prefecture, lord of Changyang Prefecture, needed them. 3 days later, Changyang Ba recovered some saint force. He emerged from seclusion and went to find Bai Yuntian, Wen Jianqin, and Shangguan Mu. Left the Tianyuan continent 3 years ago. They had left the saint artifact with Bai Yuntian. Bai Yuntian cultivated in the artifact space, and her strength skyrocketed. She was now a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master, just like the saint rulers of the Tianyuan continent. She had a lifespan of 3,000 years, so time had not left a mark on her face. Although she was already 60 years old, she still seemed to be in her 30s. Changyang Ba sent away all the servants in a garden filled with the fragrance of flowers in Changyang Prefecture. He sat in a white pavilion with Bai Yuntian. The entire pavilion was enveloped by a barrier. "Husband, why are you looking for me? Why are you so cautious?" Bai Yuntian immediately asked out of curiosity when she saw Changyang Ba envelop the pavilion with a barrier. Changyang Ba sat on a stone stool and gently sipped some tea. He said, "My wife, not only did the heavenly resources that Xiang'er left behind allow my strength to skyrocket, but it also allowed me to be reborn, allowing me to reach the Holy Emperor level in just a few short decades. At the same time, I have the hope of becoming a Holy Emperor. At the same time, the world has changed in a way that none of us can understand. The sovereigns who guard the Divine Hall have said that the strange change in the world has made the laws of the world slightly more complete. Not only will it allow us to cultivate more efficiently, but it will also make it easier for us to break through bottlenecks. These changes will definitely gradually affect the Holy Emperor and cultivators at the level of the Holy Emperor as time goes on. As a result, under the influence of the world, I want to relinquish my position as Prefecture Lord and focus on cultivation. My husband, who do you plan to pass the position of Prefecture Lord to?" Bai Yuntian's expression was calm. Decades ago, her greatest wish was for Jianqin to inherit the position of Prefecture Lord of Changyang Prefecture. But now, the position of Prefecture Lord of Changyang Prefecture was insignificant in Bai Yuntian's eyes. Changyang Ba looked up at the sky and sighed. He said, "In my heart, the most suitable person to inherit the position of Prefecture Lord is none other than Xiang. But let's not talk about whether Xiang'er is interested in the position of Prefecture Lord. Moreover, with Xiang'er's achievements, I'm afraid that he won't be interested in the position. The second most suitable person to inherit the position is Hu, but he has severed his emotions and desires. He has severed his familial ties and devoted himself to cultivation in the Pure Heart Pavilion. Now, among the 4 children of Changyang Ba, only Ku'er is left." Bai Yuntian smiled faintly and said, "My husband, among your 4 children, Hu Mingyu and Xiang'er are all very capable and have their own world. Only Ku'er has not accomplished anything yet. If you pass the position to Ku'er, I will not object." "All right, since my wife has said so, then it's settled. I'll get Changbo to announce this right now. In 7 days, Ku'er will officially inherit the position of Prefecture Lord of Changyang Prefecture." Changyang Ba smiled from ear to ear. He did not need to ask anyone else, nor did he need to ask for the opinions of the other senior members of the clan. The successor to the position of Prefecture Lord of Changyang Prefecture was decided by Bai Yuntian and Changyang Ba. The news that the Prefecture Lord of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Ba, was about to step down and pass the position to his 3rd son, Changyang Ku, spread very quickly. In less than a day, it had spread across the Tianyuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Sea Realm, and the Wasteland continent. Its influence was so great that even the new emperors of the 3 great empires on the Tianyuan continent could not compare to a 10,000th of it. This was because the current Changyang Prefecture was the clan of the greatest human expert, Jianqin. The current Prefecture Lord of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Ba, was Jianqin's father. Changyang Ku, who was about to inherit the position of Prefecture Lord, was also Jianqin's 3rd brother. Because of the relationship between the two, the extremely common succession of the old and new in Changyang Prefecture became different on the Tianyuan continent. Many Holy Emperor and Holy Emperor level experts of the four races, as well as a few people in charge of large organizations, had received kindness from Genshin in the past. As a result, they began to prepare great gifts as soon as they received the news. They planned to visit Changyang Prefecture in 7 days to congratulate Changyang Ku on inheriting the position of patriarch. At the same time, Changyang Ku and his wife, who were about to become the prefecture lord of Changyang Prefecture, were extremely excited within an extremely luxurious hall in Changyang Prefecture. Husband, you'll become the prefecture lord of Changyang Prefecture in a few more days. At that time, your name will definitely resound across the entire continent. Even the other 3 races will know your name, said a woman in her 30s. The one who spoke was a woman who was about 30 years old. She had a face like a flower and a face like the moon. She was quite pretty. Her speech and actions were filled with the feeling of a lady from a noble family. Between her eyebrows, there was a bit of unconcealable arrogance. At a glance, one could tell that she was a young lady who grew up in a big family. The woman was Changyang Ku's wife. Her name was Xia Yan. The two of them had been married for many years and had a son. He had just turned 20 this year. As Changyang Ku's only wife, Xia Yan obviously possessed an extraordinary status in Changyang Prefecture. Changyang Ba had bestowed upon her 100,000-year-old heavenly resource to change her constitution, allowing her to be reborn. She had become a great talent for cultivation, allowing her to become a heaven saint master at such a young age. Of course, the 100,000-year-old heavenly resource in Changyang Ba's possession had all been left behind by Genshin. Changyang had matured a lot as well. He was now a middle-aged man in his 30s. He possessed the gentleness of a scholar. His strength had also reached Saint Ruler because of Genshin. Changyang was extremely excited at this moment. He had never thought that his father would actually pass the position to him. This was completely unexpected to him. Out of Changyang Ba's 4 children, he was the most useless one. If it were not for Genshin, he probably would have only been an Earth Saint Master at the end of his life. He would never have been able to become a Saint Ruler. Even though he had become a Saint Ruler now, he still felt like he was a nobody. This was because his sister and brother were just far too dazzling. They had both become Origin Realm experts. Under the limelight of Changyang, Mingyue, and Genshin, Changyang's achievement as a Saint Ruler seemed like the light of a firefly. Not to mention that it was no longer a Saint Ruler several decades ago, where the Holy Emperor did not appear and the Holy Emperor was extinct. Now that all the sainthood experts had appeared, a mere Saint Ruler like him seemed even more insignificant. However, the position of the provincial lord of Changyang Prefecture was completely different. Was there anyone in Changyang Prefecture who did not know about it among the 4 races? Was there anyone who did not know about it? As long as he became the provincial lord of Changyang Prefecture, he would possess an extremely great status, even if his personal strength was not great. Only with this status would he be able to truly raise his head. More importantly, as the provincial lord of Changyang Prefecture, he would be able to command 5 powerful divine guards of the flame. Controlling 5 holy emperors who were at the 5th heavenly layer or higher was a supreme honor. When necessary, he would even be able to mobilize some of the flame mercenaries. Changyang had never thought that there would be a day when he would possess such great authority. Congratulations, father, on becoming the provincial lord of Changyang Prefecture. A handsome young man knelt on the ground as he excitedly said. The young man bore some resemblance to Changyang Ku. His face was filled with undisguised pride. He was the son of Changyang Ku and Xia Yan. His name was Changyang Su, and he was Changyang Ku's only child. Aside from Shangguan Mu, Shao Qian, Shao Yu, Qin Qin, and Yu Yu, no one knew about Genshin's son, Shangguan Aojin. As a result, Changyang Su became Changyang Ba's only grandson, so he was obviously doted on by Changyang Ba. When Changyang Su was young, Changyang Ba had mixed many precious heavenly resources into medicinal liquid for Changyang Su to soak in. He had been using heavenly resources to cleanse Changyang Su's body since he was young. There were countless 1,000-year-old heavenly resources, and there were even 10,000-year-old and 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. Without any exaggeration, Changyang Su had been soaked in medicinal liquid since he was young. Even Jianqin did not receive such treatment in the past. As a result, he possessed extremely great potential. His cultivation speed increased by leaps and bounds, which was extremely shocking. At the same time, he could casually browse through the battle skills and cultivation methods of the clan. After all, with the current status of the Changyang Prefecture, there was no need for them to carefully protect the various battle skills and cultivation methods like before. Changyang Su did not disappoint Changyang Ba. He was a great saint master at the age of 20, while many people had only just condensed saint weapons at his age. Even some direct descendants of ancient clans were nowhere near as accomplished at Changyang Su's age. Among the younger generation, Changyang Su had truly become the greatest expert. Coupled with his illustrious background, Changyang Su became condescending before outsiders. A sliver of pride finally appeared on Changyang Ku's face as he looked at Changyang Su. He admitted that he was the most useless of his 4 brothers, but he believed that he had already surpassed his eldest brother and 4th brother in terms of the younger generation. Su, you have to work hard on cultivation. You have to become someone like your uncle in the future and make me proud, Changyang Ku said sincerely. He held very high hopes for his son. Father, my future goal is to surpass uncle and replace him as the greatest human expert, Changyang Su proudly declared. He was rather conceited. Changyang Ku immediately frowned when he heard that Changyang Su wanted to replace his uncle. He sternly said, Su, you can't have achieved so much at such a young age without your uncle's help. You have to show some respect to your uncle. Do you understand? I understand, father. I will definitely respect uncle in the future, Changyang Su said nonchalantly. Changyang Su disagreed. He had only seen his legendary uncle a few times since he was young. Xia Yin glanced at Changyang Ku and said, Why are you so strict? Su's goal is to surpass uncle. We should be happy that he has such thoughts, not scolding him. Don't you want to see your child stand at the apex of the Tianyuan continent in the future, within the City of God, one of the 7 capital cities of the Holy Empire? A resolute young man dressed in martial arts roamed the bustling streets in high spirits. Beside the young man were 2 women in white dresses. The 2 women seemed to be in their 20s. They were extremely beautiful and possessed beauty that could cause the downfall of nations. Wherever they passed, they would attract the gazes of countless people, causing them to become stunned. At this moment, the news that the 3rd young master of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Ku, was about to inherit the position of potentate of Changyang Prefecture spread. In the blink of an eye, the entire City of God was shaken up. Everyone knew about it very soon. Changyang Ku? Isn't that my 3rd uncle? The young man's face changed when he heard the news. Xiao Bao, your grandfather is about to abdicate and let your 3rd uncle inherit the position of patriarch. With the current prestige of the Changyang clan, the matter of passing on the position will definitely be extremely grand. There should be many experts participating on that day. Do you want to go and take a look? A woman beside the young man said. Her voice was pleasant and as beautiful as the heavens themselves. Big sister Xiao Qian, big sister Xiao Yu, let's go and take a look. After all, that's my 3rd uncle. Moreover, I should be able to see my grandfather and grandmother during my 3rd uncle's ascension ceremony, the young man said with a somewhat complicated expression. The young man was Shangguan Aojian. The 2 women beside him were the other 2 saints of 3 Saint Island. They were also the disciples of the heavenly enchantress, Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu. Chapter 1576. This was a desolate world with a gloomy sky. There was no sun, moon, or stars in the sky. The ground was barren, and as far as the eye could see, the vast plains were devoid of life. It was filled with deathly stillness. At this moment, a young man who seemed to be in his 20s sat on the barren land in the center of the world. 2 swords that were over a meter long hovered before the young man. They shone with violet and azure light. A ball of flames burned in the young man's hand, radiating with terrifying heat. He was refining the 2 glowing swords. At a closer glance, it would not be difficult to discover that the 2 swords were covered in tiny cracks. The cracks were extremely dense, spreading out like a spider's web, covering the entire sword. At this moment, the 2 cracked swords actually began to slowly heal under the terrifying flames in the young man's hand. Although the healing was not particularly fast, the cracks on the 2 swords would completely vanish if this continued. The young man was Jianchen. He had already spent 3 whole years there. Of course, those 3 years were only in terms of the outside world. However, in this hazy world, there was no sun, moon, or stars, so there was naturally no difference between day and night. He could not sense the flow of time at all in such an environment because the landscape seemed to remain unchanged. He would not even know how much time had passed once he entered seclusion. During these 3 years, Jianchen and Shangguan Mu had always absorbed the yin and yang qi from the yin-yang saint rock to cultivate. As a result, both Jianchen and Shangguan Mu, Er's strength increased at a tremendous rate. In particular, Shangguan Mu, Oi's strength increased so quickly that she had even surpassed Jianchen's. Jianchen's chaotic body remained at the 5th layer, although the energy he had absorbed in the past 3 years was not enough for him to reach the 6th layer. His chaotic Naiden had reached major achievement. If he continued to cultivate at this rate, he would break through to the 6th layer very soon. As the energy required to break through to the next layer would increase by 10 times, Jianchen's cultivation would become more and more difficult as his chaotic body progressed. Jianchen sat there and burned his chaotic force to turn into chaotic flames to repair the twin swords. Even though the fusion had failed, it had still damaged the twin swords. Even the sword spirits had weakened as a result. However, the damage was not extremely severe. He only needed some time to reforge the swords, and he could repair the cracks in the twin swords. Jianchen had no idea how long it took him to repair the twin swords in this world where he could not sense the flow of time. In the end, all the cracks on the twin swords vanished. Aside from the sword spirits still being rather weak, the 2 swords seemed the same as when they had just been forged. They shone with a dazzling violet and azure light. After the twin swords were repaired, Jianchen stood up from the ground. Stepping on the Ziying sword, he shot off into the distance as a resplendent violet streak of light. In the blink of an eye, Jianchen arrived several dozen kilometers away. A small, earthen hut stood silently on the desolate ground. It seemed ordinary, but it pulsed with powerful energy. Shangguan Mu had used an ability to grow this earthen hut out of the ground. As a result, this seemingly ordinary hut possessed extremely great defense. Jianchen stared at the hut from outside. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the walls and see what was inside. A sliver of tenderness appeared on his face at that moment. Mu still hasn't refined the yin and yang qi. Looks like I'll have to wait a little longer, Jianchen thought. He had already grown accustomed to waiting over the past 3 years. Due to his chaotic body, he could refine the yin and yang qi extremely quickly. However, Shangguan Mu needed several times more time than Jianchen to completely refine the energy. If Jianchen only needed 3 days to refine the yin and yang qi, Shangguan Mu would need 10 days or even half a month. Jianchen would not have dared to absorb the yin and yang qi in the yin-yang saint rock without Shangguan Mu. Otherwise, only death would await him. As a result, before Shangguan Mu completely refined the energy, Jianchen could only wait patiently. However, at this moment, the door to the hut slowly opened, and Shangguan Mu appeared at the entrance. She made her way out slowly. Mu, you've emerged. Jianqin immediately smiled. Shangguanmu smiled sweetly. Her smile immediately made the world pale and flowers wither. Even with Jianqin's willpower, he could not help but become stunned. I've already reached returnance. If this continues, I'll be able to reach reciprocity in just a few years. Shangguanmu smiled. She was rather excited. After spending 3 years together, Shangguanmu had completely forgotten about her past unhappiness. Her feelings for Jianqin rapidly increased, and she had truly accepted Jianqin as her husband. Moreover, Shangguanmu was no longer cold and arrogant. Perhaps it was because of Jianqin's influence, or perhaps it was because of the change in her relationship with her father, Hao Wu, but Shangguanmu had let go of the knot in her heart and gradually became more cheerful. Although she still could not compare to other lively women, she would smile from time to time at the very least. This would have been extremely rare in the past. My chaotic body is about to break through to the 6th layer as well. Jianqin smiled faintly before making his way to the Yinyang Saint Rock with Shangguanmu. When Jianqin arrived at the rock, he immediately frowned when he saw it. His face became stern as well. He stared at the rock for quite a while before saying, "Oh no, the evil power is absorbing the rock faster and faster," Jianqin said sternly. Shangguanmu became extremely stern at that moment as well. She stared at the red light hidden within the Yinyang Saint Rock with her enchanting eyes. She sensed that something was wrong. She understood the power of the Yinyang Saint Rock extremely well. It was just 2 tiny black and white stones, but the terrifying energy within them was enough to shock any origin realm expert. The evil power would definitely grow at an astonishing rate as it absorbed the yin and yang qi hidden within the Yinyang Saint Rock. If this continued, she struggled to imagine just how powerful the evil power would become once it broke free. "Jianqin, what should we do? Are we just going to let the evil power continue to grow like this?" Shangguanmu said. She was also very stern. Both she and Jianqin were extremely fearful of this evil power because just a single glance at the red light within the Yinyang Saint Rock was enough to send chills down their spines. The two of them had seen many experts along the way, especially Jianqin. They had even faced the Divine King before, but even the Divine King did not give them such an intense feeling. Jianqin shook his head. Powerlessly, "There's nothing we can do. We can't touch the rock. The evil power is hidden in the rock, so we can only watch as it rapidly grows. The only thing we can do is absorb as much yin and yang qi as possible to reduce the difference in strength between us and the evil power." Jianqin was extremely certain that the evil power was the source of the crisis of the world. Although he possessed the primordial god silk, he had no idea how to use it, nor did he know how to use the primordial god silk. Even when he went to the sword spirits, they were unable to provide him with an answer. The only thing he was certain about was that the power of the primordial god silk would awaken from its slumber at a crucial moment. Under the threat of the evil power, Jianqin and Shangguanmu did not dare to waste any time. They immediately began to absorb the yin and yang qi in the Yinyang Saint Rock before using dual cultivation to balance it out. The absorption lasted for 3 days. 3 days later, the two of them left and entered seclusion to refine the energy in their bodies. Jianqin's chaotic body had reached major accomplishment in the past 3 years. Coupled with the absorption of the yin and yang qi, his chaotic body had finally broken through to the 6th layer. His body experienced the painful refinement of breaking through once again, causing his chaotic body to become even more powerful. The 6th layer of the chaotic body is equivalent to the 9th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. Jianqin silently sensed his own strength. According to his familiarity with the classification of cultivation realms on the Tianyuan continent, he immediately determined that it was the 6th layer of the chaotic body. The 9th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor was nowhere close to Shangguanmu's strength at returnance. However, Jianqin believed that his battle prowess at the 6th layer of the chaotic body was far greater than that at the 5th layer. When he fought Xiongzhong at the 5th layer of the chaotic body, He had barely managed to come to a draw. He had even slightly lost the upper hand. In the end, he had relied on the recovery of Class 9, Radiant Saint Force, to defeat Xiongzhong in terms of endurance. Chapter 1577. He had reached the 6th layer of the chaotic body, but clearly that was not enough to fend off the world of forsaken saints. Jianqin also understood that as his strength increased, the strength of his enemies might increase as well. Moreover, his final opponent was not Ouyang Yongwen, but the Spirit King, who had reached reciprocity and was no weaker than godhood. Godhood, Jianqin murmured. His eyes shone brightly as they were filled with yearning. He knew that it was extremely difficult for him to reach godhood with the chaotic body in a lower world, but he had the Yinyang Saint Rock here. With the assistance of the rock, reaching godhood was not impossible. He would just need quite some time. Afterwards, Jianqin began to wait in boredom. However, Jianqin was unwilling to waste any time. Even if he could not absorb the energy from the rock, he would use the time to cultivate and comprehend the way of the sword, as well as the various sword techniques that the sword spirits had passed on to him. Today was the day that the Patriarch of Changyang Prefecture in Lore City of the Kingdom of Jessen on the Tianyuan continent, Changyang Ba, would step down. He would pass the position to his third son, Changyang Ku. The matter of the new Patriarch of Changyang Prefecture had caused an uproar on the Tianyuan continent several days ago. Basically, everyone knew about it. Experts from the 4 races of the Tianyuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Sea Realm, and the Wasteland continent had all traveled tens of millions of kilometers to congratulate the new Patriarch of Changyang Prefecture with heavy gifts. A few experts had already arrived in Changyang Prefecture before the blazing sun had even appeared on the horizon. As time went on, more and more people from the 4 races gradually gathered in Changyang Prefecture. These people were all renowned figures in their respective territories. There were even quite a few holy emperors among them. Basically, all the holy emperors of the 4 races had broken through because of Jianqin's gift of violet cloud peaches. As a result, all the Holy Emperor experts owed Jianqin a great favor. They would never be able to repay this favor to Jianqin, but they could repay it to his clan. As a result, so many Holy Emperors had personally come to congratulate the replacement of the Patriarch of Changyang Prefecture. All of this glory was because of Jianqin. Very soon, Changyang Prefecture was filled to the brim. Because there were just too many people present, and many of them possessed great statuses, the hall in Changyang Prefecture was unable to accommodate so many people, even if it had been expanded several times over. As a result, Changyang Ba arranged for the replacement ceremony to be held in the large courtyard. The Holy Emperor had already condensed a platform with earth-attributed Saint Force in the large courtyard. Right now, the platform was empty. Many holy emperors and the leaders of large clans and organizations were still standing below. Before the replacement ceremony began, even though Changyang Ba was Jianqin's father, it was not appropriate for him to sit on the main seat before so many holy emperors and leaders of large clans and organizations. The elven queen of the elves of the Wasteland continent has arrived. She presents the greatest treasure of the elves, 100 droplets of dew of life. The host's voice constantly rang out. Every time it rang out, many people would cry out in surprise. 100 droplets of dew of life. The elven queen sure is generous. The dew of life is the greatest treasure of the elves. It's said that only a single droplet is produced every 100 years. Although it can't increase strength, every single droplet is filled with tremendous life force. Even if you're on the brink of death, a single droplet of dew of life can easily save you. It's also said that the dew of life can change the constitution of people, allowing them to be reborn. A single droplet of dew of life is a priceless treasure. It's difficult to measure its value because only the elves can produce something like that. The elven queen has actually taken out 100 droplets this time. That's 10,000 years of stock. The dwarven patriarch of the Wasteland continent has arrived. He presents 100,000-year-old heavenly resource and 5 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. The Peng Emperor of the Beast God continent has arrived. He presents 300,000-year-old heavenly resources and 10 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. The clan leader of the Tiger tribe from the Beast God continent has arrived. He presents 500,000-year-old heavenly resources, 20 10,000-year-old heavenly resources, several thousand-year-old heavenly resources, 1 Class 9 monster core, 5 Class 8 monster cores, and 1 cub of the Tiger tribe. As the Tiger Patriarch's gifts were announced, the people gathered in Changyang Prefecture immediately began to discuss. Many of them sighed in amazement. The Tiger Patriarch's gifts were actually more than the Holy Emperor of the Peng clan, Songcheng. He had even given away the royal tiger cub, which was equivalent to gifting his descendants to Changyang Prefecture. The Tiger Patriarch has his own difficulties. Back then, the Tiger Emperor had offended the winged tiger and even tried to harm the winged tiger. It's said that the winged tiger's father was killed by the Tiger Emperor. The Tiger Patriarch is afraid that the winged tiger would vent his anger on the Tiger clan, which is why he tried everything he could to climb up to Changyang Prefecture. He wants to use the power of Changyang Prefecture to protect his clansmen. After all, the Tiger Emperor had caused a great disaster back then. Even the extinction of the Tiger clan would not be enough to make up for it. The Holy Emperor of the Humans said softly. He looked at the Tiger Patriarch with a sliver of sympathy. The Tiger Emperor's attempt to murder the winged tiger had nothing to do with the Tiger clan. However, it was exactly because the Tiger Emperor was a member of the Tiger clan and the king of the Tiger clan that the Tiger clan was implicated as well. Among the humans, the entire clan would be wiped out if one wanted to kill the ruler of a country. However, the Tiger Emperor had tried to kill the ancient divine beast, the winged tiger. According to the traditions of the magical beasts, that was enough to wipe out the entire clan. Although the Tiger Emperor was dead and the winged tiger had no intentions of doing anything to the Tiger clan, the Tiger Patriarch still felt uneasy. He wanted to cling onto the great tree that was the Changyang Prefecture in a hurry. The entire Tiger clan had put in a lot of effort to use the opportunity of Changyang's ascension. They had basically given away everything of value in the clan. The ancestral emperor of the Felicity Empire has arrived. He has presented 3 heaven-tier battle skills, 1 saint-tier cultivation method, and 3 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. The patriarch of the Qianmu clan has arrived. He has presented 5 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. The great elder of the tyrants' blade school has arrived. He has presented the envoy of the Poseidon Hall has arrived. He has presented all the people of the 4 races had gathered for the succession of the provincial lord. Although the sainthood experts of the Sea Realm were unable to come as they remained in the Supreme Divine Hall, they had sent envoys to congratulate the new lord on behalf of their clans. Every single one of them had brought with them heavy gifts. There were countless heavenly resources, battle skills, cultivation methods, and so on. Just a single gift was enough for the Changyang Prefecture to receive an inestimable amount of wealth. Changyang Ba and Changyang Ku also greeted everyone with smiles. As the only grandson of Changyang Ba had always doted on Changyang Su. He had been nurturing Changyang Su since he was young. Coupled with Changyang Su's current accomplishments, Changyang Ba loved his grandson even more. Changyang Ba had brought Changyang Su with him for this event. Whenever he greeted the guests of great status, he would always introduce Changyang Su. His face was filled with uncontainable pride. Changyang Su had become a great saint master at the age of 20. Even on the Tianyuan continent, very few people could match his cultivation speed. Coupled with his background as Changyang Ba's grandson, the guests of great status praised him endlessly. There were even quite a few people who suggested that their great-granddaughters, who were of the same age as Changyang Su, should be married off. Changyang Su's face became filled with uncontainable pride when he heard the praises of these people. Although he remained polite before these important people, He had already become arrogant before people of the same age. He even looked down on a few hermit clans. Changyang Su did not care about the marriage either. His great background and talent made him extremely arrogant. In his opinion, although there were a few holy emperors among these people, their great-granddaughters were many generations removed from him. He had no idea just how many great-granddaughters they had. Perhaps there were several dozen or several hundred. After all, it was very common for people who had lived for several thousand years to have over 10,000 direct descendants. On the other hand, he was the only son of the patriarch of the Changyang clan. How could the children of large clans, who were separated by countless generations, be worthy of him? Moreover, these holy emperors had all broken through because of his uncle. Is he my grandfather? The person beside him should be my third uncle, Changyang Ku. Is the young man beside grandfather my younger brother, Changyang Su? Shangguan Aojian murmured to himself in a voice that only he could hear as he stared at Changyang Ba and the others from afar. Although Shangguan Aojian had once come to Lore City for training and had heard about his father's deeds, he had never personally seen his grandparents. That's right. Xiao Bao, that person is your grandfather, Changyang Ba. However, we've only heard about your third uncle from time to time. We've never seen him before. After all, your third uncle has always kept a low profile. Xiao Qian gently smiled beside Shangguan Aojian. Xiao Bao, do you want to go and reunite with your grandfather? Look at your third uncle's son. He's only a great Saint Master, yet your grandfather loves him so much. If your grandfather knew that he had such an outstanding grandson like you, he'd probably be overjoyed, Xiao Yu also said. She used a communication technique to send her voice directly into Xiao Bao's ears. She did not want anyone else to hear her. Shangguan Aojian shook his head. My father isn't here, and neither is my mother. Under these circumstances, do you think anyone would believe me if I said that I was Jianqin's son? Moreover, no one knows about the relationship between my father and mother. I even suspect that even my grandparents don't know about this. Chapter 1578. At this moment, a few luxuriously dressed young men who seemed to be in their 20s had gathered together in a sneaky manner near Shangguan Aojian. They all looked at Shangguan Aojian's group of 3 through the crowd. However, their gazes were gathered on Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu most of the time. They all revealed stunned expressions, and there were even traces of infatuation in the eyes of 2 people. Hua Fanyan, Lu Qing, Zhou Xiaohua, Ala Duogong. Do you see those 2 women? They're rare beauties. I never thought I'd come across such good stuff in Changyang Prefecture with my great-grandfather, said a young man in a deep voice. A young man said softly. He wore azure robes and had an elegant appearance. He was extremely handsome, but he seemed slightly frivolous. His gaze toward Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu was filled with infatuation. Of course I saw them. Speaking of which, I've played with a lot of beautiful women since I was young. Many of them are not inferior to the 2 women in front of me. However, compared to the 2 women in front of me, I always feel that something is missing. Moreover, from the moment I saw these 2 women, I suddenly felt that all the women I've played with in the past had turned into rouge powder in an instant. Zhou Xiaohua patted the fan in his hand and stared at Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu through the occasional gap in the crowd. Idiot, that's because the 2 of them possess an otherworldly presence. They seem like goddesses, filled with a sense of holiness. Even though the women you've played with in the past possessed great beauty, they didn't possess this presence at all, said Lu Qing beside Zhou Xiaohua. Lu Qing, who was beside Zhou Xiaohua, said, These youths who had gathered together were all disciples of great powers and clans. If they were not from the royal family of the 3 great empires, they were from ancient aristocratic families. Their statuses were extraordinary. And who's that young man? Which organization does he belong to? He actually has 2 beautiful women by his side. I'm so envious. If I had 2 women like that serving me, I'd even be willing to give up on the position of crown prince, said Hua Fanyan. Hua Fanyan said, His gaze towards Shangguanaojian was filled with envy, as well as some undisguised jealousy. Aladagon stared at Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu without blinking. His eyes were filled with desire, and saliva was about to drip from the corner of his mouth. He had played with many women in the past, but he had never met anyone with such a temperament. Compared to the two women before him, all the women he had played with in the past were simply plain rouge. I have to find a way to take those two women back. Ala Duogong rubbed his hands together. He liked Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu more, and more the more he looked at them. At the same time, he was confident that he possessed the qualifications to do so because he came from an ancient clan, and the ancestor of his clan was one of the few holy emperors on the Tianyuan continent. Hua Fanyin slapped Ala Duogong's head and scolded him with a smile. Duogong, why don't you take a look at where you are? We're in Changyang Prefecture, not your Ala clan. It's impossible for those two women to end up in our hands. Let's go tell young Master Su about this. His father is about to become the patriarch of Changyang Prefecture, and young Master Su is the only son of the patriarch. At that time, he'll become the young master of Changyang Prefecture. He'll become the patriarch sooner or later. So we should use this opportunity to strengthen our relationship with young Master Su. It'll be extremely beneficial for us when we get to the position of patriarch in the future. With that, Hua Fanyin pulled out a white piece of jade from his space ring. With a squeeze of his hand, the jade was immediately crushed to pieces. Hua Fanyin had already known Changyang Su for several years. As a member of the imperial family of an empire, he had been influenced by his clan since he was young. He was rather skilled at forming cliques and factions to strengthen his position and expand his influence. For the sake of his future battle for the position of crown prince, he had done everything he could to befriend Changyang Su. After several years, he had finally managed to establish a relationship with Changyang Su. Although Changyang Su had never treated him as a member of the imperial family seriously, Hua Fanyin did not mind. He continued to behave like a yes-man before Changyang Su. In his opinion, as long as he could cling to Changyang Su, he would even have enough power to participate in the battle for the throne in the future. He would even be able to emerge victorious in the end. At this moment, Changyang Su was following beside Changyang Ba in a grand manner. He constantly asked the representatives of the various large clans and organizations questions. Before these seniors, Changyang Su seemed extremely obedient. He constantly bowed to them and called them seniors. At this moment, Changyang Su's face changed. He had already sensed that one of the twin stones in his space ring had shattered. He had given the other one to Hua Fanyin. Hua Fanyin had always been by his side in the past few years. He basically listened to everything Changyang Su said. Gradually, the prideful Changyang Su began to acknowledge Hua Fanyin's existence. He even gave him a piece of the twin stone so that he could use it for important matters. However, although Changyang Su acknowledged Hua Fanyin, he did not treat Hua Fanyin as a friend. He treated Hua Fanyin as a follower most of the time. Why is Hua Fanyin looking for me at a time like this? Changyang Su was curious, but he clearly could not leave at a time like this. Finally, close to noon, the ceremony for handing over the position of Patriarch of Changyang Prefecture was about to begin. Changyang Ba and Changyang Ku appeared on the stage as well. Only now did Changyang Su finally have the time to meet with Hua Fanyin and the others. As soon as he saw Changyang Su appear, Hua Fanyin immediately lost his dignity as a member of the imperial family. He greeted Changyang Su with a wide smile and fawning over him. He told Changyang Su about the two beauties he had met earlier in detail. At that moment, let alone Hua Fanyin, even the other members of the large clans and organizations with Hua Fanyin dismissed their arrogance before Changyang Su. They surrounded Changyang Su with fawning expressions as well, as if Changyang Su had become their master at that moment. Changyang Su stood there emotionlessly. His sharp gaze would sweep through the surroundings from time to time, giving him a dignified presence. After hearing Hua Fanyun and the others' descriptions, he asked in a rather doubtful tone, "Are the two women really as stunning as you described them to be?" Changyang Su remained unmoved. He had seen far too many beautiful women, especially in the past few years, who knew how many large clans and organizations had come to propose marriage. Every single one of them was stunning, but Changyang Su did not take an interest in them at all. He felt that none of them were worthy of him. Although they were all stunning, he believed that he could get any woman he wanted with his current status and status. He only needed to wave his hand, and a large number of them would come to him obediently. It's absolutely true. If you don't believe me, we'll take you there right now. We definitely won't disappoint you. Only someone like that is worthy of someone like you, young Master Su. The young men immediately led Changyang Su into the crowd and made their way in Shangguan Aojian's direction. Along the way, all the guests who blocked the way would nod with a smile when they saw Changyang Su. They would then move out of the way in an extremely conscientious manner. Very soon, Changyang Su found Shangguan Aojian under the lead of the young men. However, when his gaze landed on Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu, he was immediately deeply attracted to them. He was unable to shift his gaze away. "Young Master Su, how is it? I didn't disappoint you, right?" Hua Fanyun smiled from one side. He knew that his actions this time had greatly increased his status in Changyang Su's heart when he saw Changyang Su's expression. Good, good, good. Hua Fanyun, you really didn't disappoint me this time." Changyang Su praised Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu 3 times in a row. The moment he saw them, he had been deeply enthralled by their otherworldly presence. He had never seen such a presence from any woman before. Hua Fanyun immediately became overjoyed when he heard Changyang Su's praise. He could not stop chuckling. Changyang Su strode toward Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu. Only Shangguan Aojian was ignored by him. Shangguan Aojian seemed to sense something as he stood in the crowd. He suddenly turned his head and stared at Changyang Su, who was making his way over. He could not help but faintly smile. But very soon, Shangguan Aojian's smile gradually froze. This was because he discovered that Changyang Su's eyes were fixated on his 2 sisters. Changyang Su arrived before Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu. He clasped his fist at the 2 of them and said, "Beautiful ladies, I am Changyang Su. Changyang Ku is my father. I represent the Changyang Prefecture in welcoming the 2 of you to my father's ceremony." Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu revealed strange expressions when they heard that. They both looked at Shangguan Aojian and ignored Changyang Su. On the other hand, Shangguan Aojian's face darkened. It was as ugly as it could get. A vicious light gradually appeared in his eyes as he looked at Changyang Su. Changyang Su frowned slightly when he saw how Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu ignored him and instead looked at Shangguan Aojian, who he did not take seriously at all. He became displeased. In his opinion, they should have immediately reported their identities and names since he had taken the initiative to befriend them as the young master of the Changyang Prefecture. "Young Master Su is talking to you. Don't you have ears?" Before Changyang Su could reply, a young man behind him said with a deep voice. His gaze was very unfriendly. However, his words angered Shangguan Aojian. Shangguan Aojian's gaze immediately sharpened as he coldly said, "If you dare to say something like that again, I'll cut off your tongue in front of everyone. Even your great-grandfather won't be able to save you then." The young man immediately shrunk his neck when he heard that. He no longer dared to say anything else. Changyang Prefecture was filled with experts right now. People from all 4 races had come to congratulate him. He really was afraid that he would accidentally offend a large organization that even his clan could not afford to offend. Although he was trying to befriend Changyang Su, he was unwilling to offend another peak organization. However, the young man before him, who he did not know, was bold enough to say something like that in front of so many people. Without a doubt, he came from a peak organization. The young men beside Changyang Su were all intimidated by Shangguan Aojian's words. They all stood behind Changyang Su obediently. They were unwilling to offend him so easily before they understood his identity. They obviously left the rest to Changyang Su. After all, he was the young master of the Changyang Prefecture. With his background in the Changyang Prefecture, he did not need to fear any organization in the world. "Sir, who might you be?" Changyang Su coldly asked. Although he had guessed that the young man before him possessed an extraordinary identity, he did not take it to heart because he was the young master of the Changyang Prefecture, as well as Changyang Ba's most beloved and only grandson. I'm your brother," Shangguan Aojian coldly replied. His face became rather sunken. Originally, he still held a sliver of hope for his younger brother whom he had never seen before. But only now did he realize that his younger brother had disappointed him far too much.